lips, skin for your skin, sin for your sin, eyes for your eyes, lips for your lips, skin for your skin, sin for your sin. Feel it down, 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 down. Think about it later. Feel it down, 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 down. Think about it later. Feel it down, 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 down. Think about it later. Feel it down, 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 down. Think about it later. All I ever wanna be is eyes for your eyes, lips for your lips, skin for your skin, sin for your sin.
As the world entered an unprecedented crisis, Magnus Carlsen and Chess24 acted quickly to create the first online chess tour of its kind. Working 24/7, we brought together the best players in the world for the largest online prize fund ever.
We have an opportunity to play online tournaments, and while other sportsmen are basically doing nothing, chess players can play the tournaments.
And as a chess player, as a top player, I need to be able to compete against strong players regularly. Otherwise, I'd lose my strength and get rusty. So in this regard, I'm very grateful to have high-level competitions. And sometimes it's not even about the money, but sometimes it's about the way the players are treated and the opportunity to be able to play against strong and top grandmasters regularly in a serious event. And so in that regard, I'm very happy that this is happening.
Broadcast live in 10 languages, the tour innovated and filled the void created by the lack of in-person play, reaching more people than any online chess event ever.
Good luck to Chess24, and you are on the right way to organize such a great tournaments.
There was fun and laughter.
Oh my gosh, what a gorgeous square. Queen e5 is, to my mind, this queen on e5 is like a goddess. It's perfect. As you're showing, it's an absolute pin on the rook. There's a pin on the queen. Talk about, dark square domination against the bishop on b1, which is a light square piece. This is a dream move.
There was tension and controversy.
What a game. Whoa. And Magnus gave up his bishop with the move rook a8, Peter.
Yeah, this is already something, an indication that something went wrong, for Magnus. He miscalculated, maybe not miscalculated, he just blundered this bishop takes a5 idea.
You put the bishop on a square.
But hang on, now h4, queen a8.
Whoa, queen a8. That's a turnaround move. Oh my goodness, queen a8, rook a1, queen h1 mate. Peter, Ding blundered terribly.
There were instructive learning moments.
We have discovered e6 was a very strong move for Nakamura. She opens up the diagonal of the queen and at the same time shuts out the d5 bishop from the defense. Black has to play rook e7 to protect the pawn and the 7th rank, but now the queen comes from the f5, queen f2, threatening rook f7, and it's curtains. So the position is collapsing right now here. Black has to resign.
And there was lots of great chess.
Oh wow! It's really an incredible game, like showing how a completely lost position can gradually turn into a winning position if you just trade all the right pieces. This game is really a masterclass on the trades, what you should be trading on and what not. And when I said that trading the queens and the bishops is good for black, I never imagined it would ever happen because it was so far away from that.
Wow.
And it's official resignation from Dingli, right?
I find the games very exciting. Actually, the knockout stage is very exciting.
4 unique online events and a grand final made up the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour, and the world took notice. The Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour has been the most watched online chess event in history. Already it has become the world's most prestigious series of online tournaments. As the first season approaches its conclusion, we want your help to do something even bigger. Our partner for the tour final is Kiva, the non-profit with a mission to expand financial access to help underserved communities. Kiva does incredible work providing microloans to help people around the world create opportunity for themselves and their communities. When the pandemic started, Kiva set up a global COVID-19 response fund to help small businesses get back on their feet. Their target? To raise $50 million to support thousands of people around the world.
Chess has helped me a lot. It's my job, career, and it also makes me who I am now. In this difficult period, the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour has provided me with opportunities to play and compete. And it also brings company and joy to the chess fans. In addition, I joined the Kiva campaign in order to help companies affected by the epidemic.
Chess24 wants to help make that happen. During the tour's final, we will be donating 50% of all proceeds from new premium memberships to Kiva. Go premium, and you will not just be supporting us and getting the best chess entertainment out there, you will be supporting people in times of need through Kiva. And if you are premium already, you can buy sponsored premium memberships for schools in cities and countries of your choice in our shop. Let's show how chess can play its part together.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour benefiting Kiva Finals. I am absolutely thrilled to be here for what could potentially be the very last day of the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour, as Hikaru Nakamura, the 5 times US champion, is one set victory away from writing history. If he wins today, he wins the final, which basically means that Magnus Carlsen has to win on demand to take the finals to its final and 7th set. It's been an absolutely incredible ride so far, and such a treat for all of us to watch and to experience and to witness this world-class chess with both these gladiators fighting it out back and forth. I think when we had this final setup between Hikaru and Magnus, clearly the 2 best performers of the tour, we all knew that we were in for a fight, but this is not even a fight. This is not even a war. This is an all-out battle between these 2, punching blows after blows, getting back up, going back down again. It's been just absolutely sensational. From the very start, from day one, we've been treated to explosive chess, and set 5 was no different. Hikaru Nakamura, of course, as we said, needs one more set to clinch the entire finals. Yesterday's set was super exciting. I mean, the first 4 rapid games completely did not, it was a slow start. It didn't set us up for what was upcoming. But that was just the calm before the storm, because nothing could have prepared us for the madness that we witnessed in the Blitz and the Armageddon section. Check out all the big moments from yesterday's set.
the protection around White's king is bare.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, okay, what kind of winning chances are we talking about from the White side? And White is done on the clock, no increment there. A terrible situation to be in.
It's simply a perfectly played Armageddon game by the Black side in my view.
A go big or go home day for the world champion, as he must win on demand to keep the match going. Hikaru Nakamura, a one-set victory away from clinching the finals. I think the 5 times US champion has done what few thought would be possible when we got into this final. He's taken the lead thrice from Magnus Carlsen in his sets in the entire match, and now with absolutely no margin for error, it's now or game over for Magnus Carlsen. And of course, the two players are going to be playing 4 rapid games. If it's with a time control 15 minutes plus 10 seconds, if that's a tie and we see a 2-2 score, they move on to the Blitz, which is a 5-minute with a 3-second increment. And if that's a tie with a 1-1 score, we move on to the Armageddon, which sees White with an extra minute, but in a must-win situation. If it's a draw, then Black wins the set. Set 5 was the first set where we actually witnessed an Armageddon and absolutely flawlessly played by Hikaru. We were discussing whether Magnus should take the white pieces or the black pieces. Magnus, in any case, always picks the color for the Armageddon. Just a brilliant set, and completely, I think today is going to be an all-out day from the world champion, because there is so much at stake. A big paycheck ahead. The winner of the tour goes back with $140,000, while the runner-up gets $80,000. Daniel Dubov and Dingleren went back with $40,000. I feel like that was another lifetime ago. Like, this match has just taken up all our attention and all our energy. And I think a few of you also wrote to us that how, and this is something that Hikaru also spoke about, that how it feels very like a Kasparov-Karpov matchup, but a lot more exciting, a lot more faster, not that 5-month, 48-game situation, but just everyday high adrenaline action. I think what's been amazing is these two players, when we see them, it's not even over the board chess, but when we see them on the webcam, when we see their faces, their body language, it's clear that they're giving every single bit of themselves to every single game that they are playing. And of course, a big day for the world champion. He's got to make some big decisions. The Berlin hasn't been working out great for him. And the big question is, what is he going to show on the board today? Because he's got to catch Hikaru up. Maybe it's time that he took some advice from Anish Giri, as Anish has a hot knowledge bomb dropped on Chessable. He suggests the French, as he makes the French great again. Have a look.
No, but nobody likes the French. I also didn't like the French, but the course makes it great, because like it's a opening, but I've done so much work to make it actually kind of, first of all, correct, to like basically correct. Also like fun. I mean, I'm making, like, I basically recreate, like I take this crappy French and make something great out of it.
So if you've had enough of the Berlin action, then definitely check out Anisha's course on the French, and there's a great inaugural deal on it with a 40% off on a lifetime repertoire by one of the best players in the world. I think it's incredible, and this is something that Yas, Peter, and I have been speaking about on the broadcast. Just what an unthinkable time this is, when we can get insights and tips and opening files from the very best in the world, and it's just a click away. I mean, this is, sometimes we just got to pinch ourselves for all the action that we are being treated to. And of course, the other big action is always happening with you guys, and a big shout out to all of you for engaging with us throughout the tour. To our audience watching us on different platforms, we hit big numbers during this final, and of course, everything that Chess24 and the tour aims to do is because of you, and all the encouragement and the feedback and your involvement in the tour has been just phenomenal. Let's take a look at what you guys had to say about the incredible set 5 that we had. Leon Watson still buzzing after yesterday's day of chess. The tour final is more like a basketball match. Bulls versus Jazz in 98, or Jordan versus Eving. Carlson and Nakamura going toe-to-toe with each other is amazing to watch. I think even in basketball, they've got this best of 7 series that happens. So it's a bit of a reflection on how we've also seen NBA formats. And I think the big part is that a lot of us have always felt that, especially in a long match format, Magnus is just unstoppable. I mean, who does anyone even come close? How can you even beat him? And Hikaru Nakamura so far has done it thrice in this final. Let's move on. History in the making, perhaps. We'll find out today. Edward writing in with, after living inside Hikaru's head since forever, the tables may finally have turned for MC. Naka is definitely playing more freely and winning when he needs to. Is today the day to crown a new king of the lockdown? The big question, what's going to happen today? Because Hikaru Nakamura is one set victory away from writing history. And this is such a insightful comment, because we've seen it in the past. These two, whenever they've met, it almost feels like, in chess language, like you say, a client. And Hikaru's always been something like that for Magnus. Magnus has a tremendous score against Hikaru in over-the-board chess, in online chess, rapid and blitz. We've seen him over and over win, and Hikaru himself has spoken about this, that how you always have this one opponent you have difficulty playing against. But something's changed in this final, and it's always been Hikaru who's taken the lead in the match, and Magnus playing catch up. I think one of the big reasons for that has been just incredible defensive technique that Hikaru has shown over the board in very difficult positions. And that's a task I wouldn't even say not many. I can't think of anyone who's up for with, when Magnus gets a better position, the kind of pressure he puts on the opponent, move by move, whether it's tactical or strategic, just constantly the most difficult questions to answer over the board. Hikaru's been up for that task, and I think that has been one of the more defining characteristics in Hikaru's play that's led us to this point. Let's move on. We also had Ashley writing in with, are we ready for the Magnus fight back? Yes, we are ready for that. And I think we also know, of course, Hikaru has been tremendous, but if there is one player in the world who we know when he's up against the wall, just his capacity and his capability of making a comeback, of his ability to win on demand, just unmatched, is the world champion Magnus Carlsen. And of course, we as commentators can only hope and can only want the very best chess to come on the board, and may the best player win. Naka to win it. Ashley supports Naka, not because I prefer him, but simply because Carlsen wins everything usually. The big winner here is chess. Ashley 100% agree with that. I think we've often had this narrative of Magnus winning everything, and tournaments have started feeling like a race for second place for all these other guys. But let's see what happens today. And we had Chess Master with Impact. It's thriller, drama, strong chess, and emotions every day. Let's see what he sent us. And indeed, yes, we've seen it's, I think with online chess, the one thing which is super exciting for us as fans to watch has just been this uninhibited expressions and feelings of players, which you don't get to see so often in over the board chess because they're a lot more guarded. But in this setup, when you're playing on a Zoom call and you've got one camera in front of you and you've got these 2-3 cameras around you, but there's absolutely no human presence, you often forget that people are watching you. And we've seen these amazing emotions being displayed and just how hard chess can be. GM Hikaru is on fire and playing unbelievable chess. Kudos to him. Magnus needs to step it up or it will be game over for him tomorrow, which is today, which is now, because we are about to lift off set 6. Hikaru Nakamura needs one win to win the finals. Magnus Carlsen needs to win on demand and then again win tomorrow if he has to win the finals. So that's 2 sets for Magnus required and 1 set for Hikaru. Miguel writing in with the finals between Hikaru and Magnus is some of the most entertaining chess I've seen in a long time. I think this has been the driving point for all of us watching it, just that the chess has been such high class and absolutely phenomenal to watch. It's been educational, it's been out of the world, it's been brilliancies, they've had their human moments of mistakes, we've seen time pressure, we've seen nerves come into play. Entertaining chess for us, but for these two guys playing over the board, it's been an epic battle. Both players in top form, extremely even score, low amounts of draws. Absolutely, I think that's one of the things with online chess. The nature of online chess is that we know we're fighting for a result, and especially with this format, when you've got a blitz tiebreak as well as an Armageddon incoming, we know that we are in for a result at the end of the day, regardless of how any one format on that particular day goes. Absolutely ridiculous match today. Hikaru coming back in the second blitz match was a bloody masterclass. If you ever consider getting into watching playing chess, now is the time. I could not agree more with that. I think the last couple of months and the very, very challenging situation that we've all been with and dealing with in our own way, chess has been this incredibly positive tool with such an amazing impact on all of us. Chess24's response to the pandemic with the world champion has been to put this Magnus Carlsen chess tour together with incredible analysts on board, breaking down the action for us. And it's been just an amazing journey. And if you have enjoyed it and you have been a part of it and you want to see more of this upcoming, definitely consider investing in your own chess education, improving your own game. And you can do that by going premium on Chess24 with unlimited access to some of the best learning material out there with courses from world champion, from top grandmasters, but also have a very, very positive impact on the community through chess, because 50% of all premium membership goes to Kiva during this final. And currently there's also a 30% off on premium membership. Peter Walsh with, it's hard to overstate how exciting this match has been. Magnus has been dominating traditional slow chess for years and he's been winning handily in online. Hikaru has not had great success, but could now win. A big day coming up for all of us. Let's move on. There was just so much conversation on Twitter, and of course we would love to have all of it on, but we have only a couple of minutes before game start, and we had Siddhar writing in with, if you aren't watching the Magnus Carlsen Tour finals, you are missing out on the greatest drama of the year by far. This is the match of 2020. This is the World Championship of 2020, at least as far as online chess is concerned. This is the fight of fights, the battle of battles. These are the two best players of online chess in 2020 having a major face off. And Somil with, over the past few days, we've witnessed some amazing chess, which makes me wonder as to what it would be like if some player from the past were to play against, say, Magnus or Hikaru. Morphy versus Hikaru. What would that be like? I think this is a great time because I see we are joined by our chess experts and our analyst, Grandmaster Yasser Saravan and Grandmaster Peter Lecco in the house. Welcome.
Thank you, Tanya. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your day and joining us for this Magnus Carlsen Tour Finals benefiting Kiva. It's really been a pleasure for Peter and I to call the action and for Tanya to be hosting and sharing all your tweets with us. As we were coming onto the show, Peter and I were just having a discussion, and Peter used a nice term. Is today Judgment Day, Peter?
Yeah, hello Yasser, hello Tanya. Exactly, that's the big question. I mean, Hikaru has the match in the hands if he managed to win today, but that's exactly the situation what Magnus wants to avoid, and I believe Magnus will give everything what he has in today's match. But in order to do that, maybe the most important thing is to calm down, control his nerves, and don't let emotions play any role. Just to focus like a machine on playing what he can do best, playing chess, and then Hikaru might have problems finishing this match off. But I mean, what Hikaru has shown yesterday with his incredible comeback, I mean, if he wins the final, it's absolutely perfectly understandable because he has played such a phenomenal chess.
A phenomenal match indeed, Peter. And we had an interesting question from our viewer about what it would be like if we had all legends from history play against players from the strongest players of today's time. This has been a conversation that's been happening throughout the tour. My take on that is that I think if you had legends from the past play against players from today without any catch-up time, I think players like Magnus Carlsen, Anish Giri, Hikaru Nakamura, Levon Aronian, Fabiano Caruana, I think they would crush them. Your take?
No question, Tanya. I'm with you 100%. I think it would be a wipeout. Keep in mind that these wonderful, wonderful legends of the past, the Max Ervas as well as the Paul Morphys. Max Erva was a mathematics teacher. He wasn't a professional player. Today's professionals are just that. They're professional. They dedicated their lives to their crafts. And a lot of the players, a lot of the legends of the past were amateurs. So there's no question to my mind they get wiped out. Peter, your take.
I think you have said everything. I don't really have anything to add. It's just that, I mean, comparing different eras, it's just not fair. I mean, all the champions were just brilliant in their times. That's why they were the champions. But chess has evolved, and chess has become so much more than just playing chess. Basically, the computers had incredible influence, and all the modern players had to adjust their play. They learned a lot from computers. It's like human touch and the artificial intelligence combined. So it's understandable that the modern players right now have better understanding of the game.
Absolutely, and we've got a little less than a minute before kickoff. Actually, the games are about to start, and we see Magnus and Hikaru have taken their seats. Magnus doesn't look very, very happy right now. And we see another Alekhine. We saw Magnus employ this opening yesterday in the first Blitz game with absolutely incredible result. Let's see what happens today, but it's not the Alekhine. I didn't see the D pawn on D4, my bad. It's not the Alekhine at all. I think that was just for one Blitz game, but let's get Peter and Yas to take us through the action.
Thank you, Tanya. Missed it just by a smidge. That E4 versus D4. Yep, we've got a Nimzo, and you know, Peter, the A2 A3. Gosh darn it, of the Nimzo. Oh, the Samish was terrible in that Armageddon game. It's amazing that Magnus actually missed a golden opportunity to possibly equalize a game, but the Samish backfired badly. He didn't play it. He played the Rubinstein with E2, E3. Over to you, Peter.
Yes, I mean, I think that Tanya mentioned that it's the Alekhine, it shows that how excited we all are. I mean, this is just an incredible fight. But yeah, this is not the Nimzo Indian, a very classical battlefield. Magnus is playing with Bishop D3, Knight G2 setup. I mean, this is not that popular, but had been played a lot. And we can see also the move order from Hikaru, that Hikaru played the move C5 instead of D5, because if you play D5, actually it's the move order I'm using, so it's nothing against D5, but it does give white the chance of fixing the pawn structure with C takes D5, E takes D5, Knight G2, getting into some very, very complex double-edged strategical fight. But with the move order with C5, basically black makes sure that white is not getting this pawn structure. So after C5, Knight G2, D5, now this is something maybe what I mean, it's not exactly what Magnus hoped for, I believe, because I like the other setup very much for black. I understand white has perfect play, so does black. But here, this is something much more solid for black. And a3, I think we will see a lot of exchanges. White might have some microscopic advantage, but when you feel like you want more out of the position or you want a very sharp struggle, then this is maybe not exactly what you are looking for.
And thank you for that, Peter. This is a throwback to the 1978 World Championship match between Anatoly Karpov and Victor Korchnoi from Baguio City, the Philippines. And I remember them discussing this variation: bishop c3, knight c3, takes on d4, takes on d4, takes on c4, knight c6, bishop e3. And Victor, well, he didn't really get too much. Hence, he's recaptured with a pawn on a c3. b2 takes c3, refortifying his center, Peter. But in my mind, this always leaves the question for white: what is he going to do with his dark square bishop, Peter?
Yes, but to be honest, what I mentioned, that it might simplify the situation, this is not the case now after a3, because after a3, bishop takes c3, b takes c3. White really wants to make sure that he gets a double-edged type of positions. Okay, this is not a big question. In fact, in my mind, it's not a big question that black should simply take d takes c4. And right. Yes, d takes c4 on the board, followed by queen c7. White plays the move bishop a2. And I'm very curious to see what Hikaru gonna play now, because black has two different moves. But okay, I believe he gonna play b6.
Right, b6, bishop a6. So from black's point of view, the light squared bishop on c8, you have to ask yourself.
Yes, I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second, because we have to address what's going on. I mean, have you seen Magnus on the webcam? He looks extremely uneasy right now, and I don't know, it looks like he's not happy at all. It's got nothing to do with the position, because it's clearly just the opening phase. The two are very well prepared, but from the very start, he's something is not all right. I don't know, what is your reading of just what's going on the webcam right now?
You're right. He's got a kind of a grumpy expression, to be sure. And furthermore, he's not wearing his usual sponsored dress shirt with all the nice decals that we're used to seeing. He looks discombobulated. And you're right. I have no idea what's happening with him at the moment, because it's not the position. He's got a double-edged position that Peter said he is trying for. So your speculation is as good as mine.
The California cool look has definitely gone on hold right now. No idea what's going on, but yes, tell us about this opening and what are the general plans for white and black?
I was about to say, if you take the last few moves back, Peter, there was a bishop on c8, and the question from black's perspective, with also the move b7, b6, just take that back. So black's bishop on c8, it needs a life. So you've got two ideas. One idea is to play e6, e5, so that the bishop can come out, whether to f5 or to g4 or potentially to e6. So that's one consideration to play for e6, e5. And the other, and the one that you liked as well as Hikaru, Peter, is to go b6 and play not to fianchetto the bishop, but maybe to what I call a accelerated fianchetto. Put it on a6, so you're hitting the square c4, the knight on e2, Peter.
Exactly. I mean, the bishop a6 is the move in this position, because usually in this type of positions, it's very rare that the white knight is on e2 and the bishop on a2. Usually the knight is on f3, bishop might come back to d3, and we have seen hundreds of games like that. And in that case, also black has the option of simply playing bishop b7 and playing a type of position, or trying to exchange the light squared bishops with bishop a6. Now when white has his bishop on a2 and the knight on e2, and there are some new dynamics in the position. And we also see Magnus playing the move rook c1 very quickly, because he has to make sure that if black plays the move knight a5, then he's ready to play the move c3, c4, opening up the long diagonal. And these are the type of positions that black has to be careful, because if he is able to deal nicely with white's advance in the center, then he will have a perfect position. But if something goes wrong, then things can really just collapse. So the first moves are very, very important here.
All right. And sorry, just kind of getting the zen of the position myself for a moment here, Peter. Your move, knight a5, as you say, you don't want to see a bishop land on c4 or even a knight, but your c4, c3, c4, could that be met by a capture on d4, Peter?
Well, if I remember, then this is not so good. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I have this in my repertoire, and it's also the game between Magnus Carlsen and Levon Aronian. I think in one of the Grand Chess Tour Rapid games, they had been debating this position, but it was like three years at least. Yes, 3 years ago.
Oh, nobody. I mean, Tanya said it feels like ancient history, the match between Ding Liren already. So 3 years ago, man, that's the statute of limitations was expired there. But I'm thinking that, I've got to support my presidency of the Pawn Grubbers Club. And I was thinking that in case of knight takes d4, I would actually just capture the pawn somehow. I guess I have to capture with the bishop, Peter.
But I mean, I have some knight b5s followed by takes, bishop takes f6, queen g4 check, and taking on c4. I mean,
that looks deadly. That looks very good. Go ahead.
The only question is which move order to use, because I'm also already quite exhausted. And
I think you could start with knight.
Exactly, as you also stated, that everything that happened before this match, I already don't remember, and and it goes exactly about my repertoire. I know that this is my repertoire, but how it exactly supposed to go, I'm not that sure myself. However, rook a8, allowing c4, I'm not that sure about that.
Right. And by the way, in that final position, I did like what you were saying there very much, Peter. Knight b5, attacking the queen moves. If you could just show the audience that was a very nice variation. Queen c5, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop takes f6. Yes, and if also you capture on b5 instead of on f6, the same move, queen g4, that's a winner. That's a double attack, and white wins. So, in fact, the pawn was poisonous. So that was why we didn't see knight a5. What do we have instead, Peter?
Yeah, the move rook a8, white played, of course, c4, and black captured on d4. And Magnus taking his time. I mean, this is interesting. That does he think that he has other alternative, because e takes d4 looks so natural.
Absolutely.
Magnus is taking his time, and we do have some information that, in fact, Magnus is suffering from some pretty bad backaches from being on the beach about 30 minutes before liftoff. So he's in actual pain right now, and which is why I think we're seeing him struggle so much on the webcam. So not only does he have to deal with a very, very strong on point and difficult Hikaru over the board, but he's actually in a lot of pain right now.
Oh my goodness. I remember from ages ago in an ancient Interpolis Tilburg tournament here in Holland, Tony Miles had severe back pains, and Tony ended up playing on literally a kind of a hospital gurney on his tummy, and there's some really famous photos of him laying down making his moves. And when you have a back pain, it can be not only disheartening, I mean, it's really just simply hard to think. So that is a severe news indeed for Magnus Carlsen fans.
Yeah, actually what you just mentioned, Yasser, if the audience missed out on this occasion, please check out Tony Miles' pictures, because I think those pictures from the Tilburg tournament are just so amazing. I always wonder that what would happen to me as an opponent if somebody would be lying there. Could I be focused? You know, I feel like, okay, how to concentrate. So it's like a very mixed thing when your opponent is lying in front of you. Now it's terrible news for Magnus, of course, that he has the back pains. On the other hand, Hikaru doesn't see this right in front of himself. So this should not disturb Hikaru, but it definitely disturbs Magnus. Another big question on the other hand, that Magnus... Yes?
Sorry to interrupt you, Peter. We do have on our broadcast a picture of Lubomir Lebojevic and Tony Miles laying down just as you were talking. So you could see that famous image went around the world when it was played because journalists were like, what?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, once you saw the picture, you understand what I'm talking about. Yeah,
right.
I mean, it's a terrible feeling. Of course, what to do, but Magnus, with pain, no pain, this is the last. I mean, it could potentially be the last day if he's not winning today's set. So I think if the battle hits on, then he will forget about the pain. But if things start to go wrong, then it will be very difficult to get this attention away from the pain eventually.
After some thought, there came the move Queen C7 E7. Peter, that Black got his queen off of the X-ray on the C file because it's very, very clear that Magnus has the move D4 D5, blasting open the diagonal of the bishop on B2 so he could capture the knight. So the move Queen E7 acted to defend the knight, simultaneously preparing a move like Knight A5, because then the capture of the C4 pawn is much more edible. Let's put it that way. Do you like that move, Peter?
Well, it's a very, very sharp position, and Queen E7 does look like a stabilizer. After all, there was no real good way. The natural move Rook FD8 would have run into D4, D5, and after E takes D5, Bishop takes F6 would be just too deadly. The big question is, after Queen E7, can White anyway go play D5 move? And Magnus has just done it.
Asked and answered, Peter. Indeed, he has. And one of the things that, as I got much better, I think I was almost a chess master at the moment I began to understand that sometimes I can simply lure my opponent forward, that as he advances, he leaves squares behind him. And sometimes it's very, very useful to get your opponent to advance the pawn. Now that the pawn is on D5, is it attackable? In other words, should I play Rook D8, pinning the pawn? Or I wasn't going to suggest to take the pawn on D5. I was going to suggest, or Knight A5. But this, now that I'm noticing it, the bishop on E2 is coming alive, Peter.
Yeah, but after E takes D5, the very concrete question that White is facing, that his knight on E2 is hanging. So basically the move D4, D5 cannot be followed up with the very natural looking C takes D5 because of bishop takes E2. So this already means that the move D4, D5 had been a sacrifice, and Magnus follows it up with the move Rook E1. X-raying the queen on E7, and he is probably hoping to jump with knight G3 to F5, putting pressure on the long diagonal against the weakness on G7. These are the things usually I would be really scared of from the black side, not to let this happen. On the other hand, if black has a good reaction, something like D5, D4 is an option also from black side, just trying to give back the material, but making sure that after, let's say, knight takes D4, I'm gonna go queen D7 and I might exchange queens, or at least get some stability.
On the other hand, the trade, if I can put it like that, the trade that has occurred in that variation, the D4 pawn is missing, the E6 pawn is missing, and as a result of those traded pawns, the rook on E1 is really beautifully positioned, and the bishop on B2 also equally beautifully positioned. I would want I would prefer to play white in this case, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, that's clear. You have a move like knight b5, a very nice move because you open up the diagonal, you keep this one pair of knights. You need this knight from the white side because whenever black takes on b5, you get cb5 and both your bishops will be perfectly opened. On the other hand, the knight is doing a lot of job on b5, targeting a7 pawn, heading towards d6. The long diagonal is open with the bishop. So yeah, d5, d4 is more like an emergency break. I just wanted to mention because it's a thematic way. And if, for example, Magnus would have started with the move knight g3 with similar ideas like rook e1, then a nicely timed d5, d4 would be very natural reaction.
Exactly. Again, shutting down this bishop on b2, which is the imbalance in the position, knight versus dark square bishop, and that move d5, d4. If it induced bishop takes d4, black would be happy. So rook e1, Peter, and maybe, well, let's just say it's a rare sighting. Hikaru, coming into the match, has come in with a very purposeful idea of playing like Nepo, at least as far as the speed is concerned, and inspired by the openings and defenses of Fabiano. As he's mentioned, he's tried to stay ahead on the clock, but he hasn't done it. This is the first time I'm seeing, well, first time is an exaggeration. It's rare to see Magnus having so much more time. And we've just seen the move bishop takes c4 by Hikaru. I wanted to ask you the question though. Would you suggest that preparation goes to Magnus in this game?
I'm not sure that there is so much preparation involved here. It's more like Magnus wanted to play a type of position. I'm not sure that he anticipated the move of the c5, or did he anticipate the move of the d5, and which one he focused on more. In any case, when finally the white player who plays this Nimzo India Rubinstein variation with e3 and prefers to go knight g2, basically it indicates that he simply agrees to play this type of position. He understands that it's not about advantage, it's much more about complexity of the position. He wants to keep as many pieces possible on the board and play a long game. On the other hand, now we have seen some very concrete action.
Right.
And the big question is now how Magnus will justify his sacrifices, because he has already sacrificed 2 pawns. Of course, he can take back one, but then the whole point of his concept would be spoiled. So right. I believe that he has to he already started the gamble. He has to go along that way and prove it that it was not a gamble. It's all perfectly sound. And the move knight g3 played. And queen d8 right. blitzed out. Black has to control the f6 knight because, okay, now the rook is open, knight is heading towards f5, but white has to lose a tempo now to deal with this bishop on c4, whether you take it, which is not really an option, I believe, or to go bishop b1 and say that, yeah, I'm 2 pawns down, but I have initiative.
Yeah, somehow it's like Magnus definitely wants to seize the initiative to push the attack. And we've been seeing him trying to do that. I don't know if he's overdone it a little bit here. I'm skeptical. I just want to put it that way. I hate the idea of, you've sacrificed 2 pawns. Now let's trade bishops. I hate the idea of bishop takes c4. But if I have to play the move bishop b1, and I kind of think he has to play the move bishop b1, frankly, I feel that it is a bit of gambling on Magnus's part.
Yeah, I have the same feeling, because let's not forget that, yes, if white plays bishop b1, the bishop on c4 is hanging, so black cannot play the d5, d4 move yet. But right. I mean, d5, d4 will be there even if you first protect your bishop somehow, and then when white goes knight f5, you play the move d4. Mm-hmm. So not entirely clear what Magnus thought. I mean, first of all, if we go back to queen e7, it was not like d4, d5 was forced, yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay. Black was kind of settling knight a5, and one can argue that, yeah, once you get knight a5, then any kind of d4, d5 breaks will be too late. So Magnus might have felt that simply d4, d5 is the principal move, and he just decided to go for it without really knowing how he will continue.
Yeah. And, well, more or less, in fact, quite more. They played down exactly what we intuited as well, that bishop b1, whether you like it or not, that's the move you got to play. You got to keep your attacking forces. Hikaru played b5, fortifying the bishop on c4 so that he could play d5, d4. Knight f5, the knight on g3 jumps in the game. By the way, knight g7, alert, alert, alert. You know, after you see a knight landing on f5, you have to be aware that danger is on your doorstep. d5, d4, absolutely the most natural move in the position, in my view, shutting down that bishop on b2, hoping to get some trades. And Magnus says, no, thank you. I don't want to trade. You keep your lousy pawns. I want to attack. Queen d2 with telegraphing queen g5, Peter.
Yes, queen g5 is a big threat. And Hikaru played the move bishop e6, like saying, okay, I know this bishop on c4 was great, but I'm not liking this knight on f5, and I'm 2 pawns up. Maybe let me just eliminate this knight, and if I do that, then do you have enough resources to pose my king some problems? I believe the answer is no to that question, but simply once black takes on f5, for example, after a move like queen g5, bishop takes f5, queen f5, maybe black will not be able to hold on to all his pawns. But again, this is not something black is really concerned about, because, okay, he's 2 pawns up. Let's just exchange some more pieces, and maybe I will even end up being pawn up. So I don't believe queen g5 is the idea of Magnus, but what exactly?
Indeed, what exactly? I thought it was there's a Zwischenzug in the position that is off-putting. I thought that knight takes d4, knight takes d4, rook takes c8 might be a favorable continuation by white, only to fall for a very nice Zwischenzug knight f3 check. Oops. I'd hoped to be able to recapture on d4 with queen, but that is off-putting. And if I take on d4 with the bishop, then I'm thinking that rook takes c1, and again, the tempest in the storm has rather passed. Magnus eschewing all of those ideas, Peter. Again, I've used this term throughout the broadcast, but it really feels to me like the players want to play a type of chess which they know is marvelously entertaining. Upping the ante is Magnus Carlsen with the move rook c5. And Peter, I got to say that visually, that's exactly the type of moves that the position is calling out for. More activity of the pieces.
Yes, that's true. On the other hand, this whole concept by Magnus, going for this very aggressive approach, somehow signals me that he is maybe too impulsive. I mean, I talked at the beginning of the broadcast that one of the key factors I believe for Magnus today is that he should calm down and try to play the chess that he's best in. And I'm not exactly sure that going for all this gamble and all this very sharp direct attempt with still so much time, I mean, right from the beginning when your opponent still has so much time. Now, we see that it was and it's still probably not an easy task for Hikaru to handle the situation. That's why we see 5.5 minutes on the clock. On the other hand, since he was faced with this right from the beginning, he had time to adjust to the situation. Right. Okay, if Magnus gonna win this game, then we will say it was a brilliant strategy. Right now, I'm not entirely sure.
Indeed, the jury is definitely out. Hikaru is saying, I'm not exactly sure what is going on here, what I should be afraid of, but I'm a couple of pawns in the pocket. Let me just keep one. A7, A6. Your turn, Mr. World Champion. Show.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, suddenly I didn't hear you.
Uh-oh.
Now it's back. Yeah, now it's
Oh.
perfect. Yeah.
I got a signal there that my microphone went doink. It was like,
Yeah, but I understand, and everybody says that technology is always cool. No, it's not cool at all. I mean, there is so much tension, so much at stake that, I mean, anything can happen to us and to the technology and to the players as well. I mean, the move A6, I don't know what to think about it. It really signals that I don't believe that you have an attack going.
Right.
And I want to protect my b5 pawn because it's not just the pawn, but it covers very important squares. On the other hand, okay, there was an option of simply eliminating this knight on f5.
right.
Okay, probably white captures them back on f5 with the bishop. It's a tempo. You
Right.
have to play the move rook c7, and then white has the move rook fc1. Yeah, it's not only about the pawn, but also about some pins. Okay, black can still play a move like queen d6, but yeah, this explains why Hikaru doesn't want to let this happen. He wants to stabilize first.
But you went right into my line of thought as well, that the move rook c5, Peter, had the double intention of taking the pawn on b5. Thank you very much. That's a nice pawn, but also doubling. So isn't doubling? There is, of course, the tactic of knight e7 check. So defending the knight on c6. So rook c1, queen d7 would be a howler. Well, hold on.
Well, knight takes g7 happened. Yeah, that was exactly my concern with a6. That do you have this time to avoid? On the other hand, not so easy to see the follow-up. I mean, one feels that there is something, but what exactly is another question.
Okay, well, let's see if we can't figure it out, Peter. This bishop on b2, it really need rook c6, bishop d4, ridiculous, Peter?
Yeah, that feels too much. But if it turns out to be right, then okay, after bishop takes d4, I have moves like h6.
Stopping the queen g5 desire. Yeah.
No, I mean, okay, Magnus played the move queen g5 check and queen h4. That was also my follow-up, but the big question was for me, what next?
So the difference here is that with the bishop on b1, the h7 pawn is under attack. So there's no knight g8, some kind of consolidating move. No. That knight is frozen. Rook c6, bishop takes d4 is definitely on white's agenda now. Rook takes c6, bishop takes d4 would have the dual threat of bishop f6 and queen h7. And I don't know if knight g7 was forced. I was thinking rook e1, c1 looked attractive. But if this works, this is genius. Just genius, Peter, if it works.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks promising. I don't know if it really kills or whatever. I mean, feeling-wise, when you see a move like a6, there is immediately this feeling that, but what happens after takes, queen g5 check.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I believe that Hikaru must have foreseen it. I cannot really imagine Hikaru not sensing the danger here, but maybe he missed something, and then if he misses something with little time on the clock, it might be very, very unpleasant.
Exactly. Also, just boldly pointing out the obvious, a move like bishop d5, anticipating that rook takes c6, rook takes c6. The rook on c6 makes a nice defensive impression. Rook takes d5. Oops. That would be very, very, very painful indeed for black. So no bishop d5. Don't think about that. Peter, as I'm looking, I want to see a defense. I'm fighting to see the defense. Rook g8, just it's while it's a desirable move, I want to play rook g4. I just think that rook takes c6 comes too fast.
Yeah, rook takes c6 comes, and after rook takes c6, bishop takes d4. You don't have time for rook g4. You have, I mean.
Yeah, I was thinking like bishop d5 defends the knight brilliantly on f6, but queen h7 is rather embarrassing.
Yeah, this is the typical mating motif here with the bishop d4 and bishop on d4 and bishop on b1. So something like rook takes g2, but also rook takes g2 doesn't do much, because even after king g2, something like bishop d5 check. Okay, I have many options, f3, king.
It definitely,
okay.
it feels like a spike check that rook takes g2, actually. So not good, not good. Let's go back to the current position, and what else could black be considering? There's a back rank mate threat, right, Peter, for white. So the rook on e1 needs to go. How do I do this? So rook e8, rook c6, rook c6, bishop d4. I do have bishop f5. Oh my God, that would be crazy.
Wow.
Because I'm trying to make a back rank checkmate, Peter. Is that ridiculous line? No.
No, not at all ridiculous. I mean, something along this way should be the solution for black. How to counter strike? Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel myself. I'm doing some desperado things. I feel like, but maybe I'm forced to be desperate, Peter.
Yeah, look at also Hikaru's clock. I mean, he's done to 130 on his clock, so he desperately needs desperate measures. I mean, just there is no simple way to defend.
No,
and you spotted this back rank issue very nicely. But Hikaru did play the move rook g8.
Okay. I don't see that. I mean, a kind of a first intention, right? Because you really desperately want to play rook g4 and drive away the attacking queen. But I thought that, unfortunately, rook c6 and bishop d4 was just too fast, Peter. Just way too fast.
Yeah, okay. The move rook takes c6 has to be played. It's clear, and we should try to understand what Hikaru bases his defense on, yeah?
Does he want to play bishop bishop d5? Wow.
Then f6 is hanging with check, yeah?
Yeah, that is absolutely true, Peter.
But I mean, exactly, that variation is not the end of the world, because after takes, rook takes g2 check, I have to go to f1, and then you go rook cg8, and you are threatening bishop c4 check, followed by rook g1 checkmate.
Wow.
I mean, okay, it shouldn't work. I have moves like bishop d3, but it's a bit scary at least.
Yeah, or king e2. Actually, crazily enough, white is actually a piece up in this variation. I mean, he was a piece down, and suddenly I'm a piece up, and we have the position on the board with rook takes c6, rook takes c6, bishop takes d4, and here I'm coming up empty. Queen h7, mate in, oh my goodness, king g7. I didn't see that move, Peter.
No, I saw the move, but I mean, it looked very, very suspicious. So I wanted to find a different alternative. I somehow suspect that the only way for black was rook e8, bishop f5, this incredible resource that you've discovered, because that one felt very much in the spirit. But just like this, trying to run out with the king, I don't believe that black can survive.
In the parlance of the British, it looks dodgy. Queen g5 check, Peter. King f8, queen h6 check, king e8, bishop takes f6.
Well, this is exactly what Magnus is doing, but with an improved version by taking on h7. He could
immediately
take queen h7 check. Yeah.
Yep.
King f8, queen h6 check, king e8, bishop takes f6, and here we are.
Same variation with a missing h7 pawn. So white is an exchange down, but that's not what the position is about. What the position is about is that black's king got blown off from the king side and is now residing on e8. Queen a5, Peter, attacking the rook on e1.
Yes, I mean, Hikaru feels like he has to create some counter chances by hitting white's weak first rank. And in this respect, queen e3 is a very, very nice little touch, because instead of continuing desperately to attack black's king, Magnus realizes that, okay, I have everything under control. I have wonderful compensation. In fact, one can even argue that did White sacrifice anything? Because after all, White is a pawn and a very powerful bishop for the rook. And Black's centralized king on e8 doesn't make a good impression. So just by not letting Black get any counterplay, White stabilizes and will continue the attack.
Exactly. The desirable rook d1 might have been met by rook d6. Again, strangely enough, Hikaru's back rank check chances was something I was looking for him as well. He's found it. I like this move, queen e3, a lot, Peter, because, oops, let's just jump to the current position. After queen e3, how did the game continue? Sorry.
Yeah, Hikaru challenged this queen on e3 with the move queen b6. Yeah, very nice move because, okay, the queen on e3 is just too powerful. And I wonder whether, did Magnus maybe miss something? He blitzed out the move rook d1 and rook d6 blitzed out by Hikaru as if he is quite relieved with what has happened in the last two moves.
Whoa, I didn't like rook d1. I was thinking that just a simple move, queen e4, maybe angling for queen h7, or even for that matter, bishop d4. But the bishop on f6 looks good. I'm not sure rook d1, that looks like a slip to my eyes at least, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Black gets to trade something off. I mean, simply I believe that Magnus felt that rook d6 is not possible because it's simply not possible. The queen on b6 is hanging and the rook d8 checkmate is happening. Sometimes you rush and you hallucinate with something. Yeah. And Hikaru using immediately this option with rook d6. And now White has to trade rooks or has to trade queens. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he can't trade queens at all because of rook takes d1 checkmate.
I don't like those choices. Bishop d4 is not happiness, but I prefer bishop d4 over the alternatives you were mentioning. By the way, just show it for the audience. The desirable queen takes b6, rook takes b6, rook d8 checkmate is brilliant, except you get checkmated when rook takes d1 gives a back rank checkmate to Black. So that was why it's possible Magnus said, you can't play rook d6 because of queen b6, and only when he got there said, oh man, I just allowed that slip. And queen c6, and again, it's the tenacity of Hikaru in somehow finding chances in a position, well, let's be fair, was horrible for Hikaru.
Yeah, it looked horrible, and he was also very low on time. Magnus still was in comfortable situation, and all of a sudden, position might still be in very nice compensation, but the spin along the d file is really annoying. And what is even more annoying, that Magnus is down to 33 seconds on the clock. Ooh. I mean, in this very sharp position, this is very, very tricky.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, we've been seeing all of these back rank issues. And for those of you who are wondering, why is Magnus off screen? We've been told that he's suffering a back injury. He has some back pain. So he's looking for a comfortable position. And unfortunately, it means that he's not on camera for ourselves who are watching. For sure, for the arbiters, he's on camera. And h2, h3, getting out of these back rank mates makes sense to me, Peter. Even considered h4, by the way. And then king d7. The king on e8 was terrible. A little bit better on d7. I just have a feeling, I think in a practical game, I prefer white, but 3 results here, Peter.
Absolutely 3 results. I mean, all these pins along the E and D file means that you can't really play by your hand. And if you can't really play by your hand, then it's very tough. Okay, Magnus played the move king h2, finally getting out of this queen c1 check. So now he is already kind of intending to move his bishop and so solving this pin issue along the d file. If he managed to solve that, then all of a sudden his position will again look very, very nice. Exactly. So a lot at stake.
Absolutely. Huge decisions being made with seconds on the clock. Again, there is a 10-second bonus for each move completed. But man, I tell you, I feel nervous when I'm down to 5 minutes, never mind when I'm down to 19 seconds. And Magnus Carlsen, a clock is ticking. Those 10 seconds go really fast. By the way, bishop d5, that wasn't the move I was looking at. Bishop f5, and I think that this is the ideal moment now for Magnus to solve his pin. There's no more queen c1. Why not bishop e5, Peter?
Well, Magnus actually chose the move bishop d3, also a very tempting move because he's solving beautifully the problem of the pin. Yeah, black cannot capture the d4 pawn because of bishop takes b5 tactics. I mean, it might look like, this is very simple tactics, but with 10 seconds on the clock, to spot these nice intermediate ideas are not simple at all.
Not easy at all, indeed. And that's a beautiful one. What a way of solving the pin along the d file.
And Hikaru down to 6 seconds.
Ooh, and Hikaru with 6 seconds made the move. Actually, I think it was even 3 seconds. He made the move queen a4 and bishop e5 very quickly, Peter. It looks like Magnus has crashed through with queen a7. This looks like it's over. It looks terrible.
It's over, and Magnus won the game. Hikaru resigned. It was clear once black gets one single check, it's game over. Wow. And Magnus managed to remove the bishop from d4 with a tempo. And maybe Hikaru blundered the move queen a7, but with few seconds on the clock, once white solved this pinning issues, then the black king on d7 was just way too naked, and there was no way to survive this.
If you would go back to the position before the move bishop d5, because just before that move, right here, it really felt like, I don't know, a move like king c8 or, no, king c8 walks into rook c2. I apologize. Yeah, king c8 walks into rook c2. But here, there's got to be some ways for black to make the position tricky. Let's put it that way. I don't think it's just a winning position for white.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Definitely not winning. On the other hand, imagine Hikaru had something like 40 seconds.
Right.
And after the move king h2, white finally can lean back that, okay, I'm about to solve this pin issue. I don't know exactly how I will benefit the most. And black wants to make a move, but he doesn't see which move to make. There are no real obvious moves. Time is ticking down, and finally you make a nervous move like, okay, let me play bishop d5 without even having the chance of thinking what are the consequences behind your move. Right. And after bishop f5 check, bishop e6, bishop d3, brilliant little tactic by Magnus. It's probably not that it's game over.
Exactly. Well, a huge way of starting this sixth set, as Magnus needs to win to the set to force a seventh set. He starts with the white pieces, and I mean, he went for it. I think he was gambling, Peter, but it paid off. I mean, to the brave goes victory. Tanya, what a way of starting the sixth set. I mean, uncompromising chess.
I mean, yes, I don't even know why you're surprised anymore, because this is just the kind of chess that we've gotten used to in this final. Absolutely combative and uncompromising, as you put it, but that's the need of the hour. The world champion needs to take his chances and to create them. And you were spot on. That was the chance that happened when Hikaru went a6. Even moving back with the bishop to e6 was something that perhaps was not the most accurate move, because it allows this rook c5 rook lift, which can be transferred to the king side, as well as threatens doubling on the c file. But a6 was the big turning point. Knight g7 spotted by the world champion instantly was the right way to go. But then the critical moment was after queen b6. Both players, it's already very difficult, this position. And after rook g8, it was this rook c6, bishop d4 just explodes black's position, and white is doing incredibly well after that. Rook g8 was, in fact, an inaccuracy. And if we just move back a little bit, Let's just go back a couple of moves. Yeah, so here white went queen h4 and rook g8, rook c6 happened, and the position with queen b6, if we could just bring that up 1 second. Yes, right about here now, this was the moment, and you were totally right. Yes, all Magnus had to do here was move the queen away, perhaps to f3, or f3 is a good square, because the idea is very simple. What white wants to do is go h4, h5, h6, h7. And it's with the king in the center and absolutely no coordination in black's pieces, nothing, no chances to create at all. This would have been game over. Rook d1 was a big moment for Hikaru to strike back and get some balance, and he did. Rook d6 was exactly the kind of move that needed to be played. And after Magnus went at bishop d4, one of the very interesting lines given by the computer here, because the rook is still pinned on d1, is actually you don't need to move the queen from b6 just about yet, but you need to create your chances. How does black do that? Is with a move like b4, trying to get in on the, just trying to break open so that you can create some chances along open files. And here, for example, white could go f4, just one of the options. Of course, a very, very messy position and difficult to say. The game can go anywhere, but just an interesting line. After f4, black simply takes on a3, sacrificing the queen, but maintains a balance, because after bishop b6, you take rook to d1, you take the rook on d1, king f2, you pick up the bishop on b1, and it's one big mess on the board. This a pawn gives a lot of compensation, completely unclear. It was a big opportunity for Hikaru to try and save, and of course, as usual, there are so many lines, and the players playing on seconds, just anything can happen, because this is exactly those kind of positions in which if you are fighting the clock or playing on seconds, mistakes are going to happen. These two, of course, world-class players playing very, very close to computer top lines, faltered here, and Magnus took his chances and now leads. So he's done what needed to be done at the start of the day. He's won his first game with the white pieces. Hikaru Nakamura has to try and level the score. 3 more rapid games to go. The excitement, of course, continues, but a bit of a relief for the world champions fans, and we've been seeing that. Let's take a look at what Hikaru had to say coming into today's set, and let's play that. Of course, Hikaru just saying bring it on there, and he's ready for it, and that's what the world champ did. He showed some excellent prep there, got his chances out of the opening, took them, and had the opportunity when he went knight g7, and that was all. One inaccuracy from the world champion, but Hikaru could not make the most of it. We've of course got lots of, as you can see, yes, Peter, I don't know if you noticed the bar below the screen while you were talking and while you were commentating. The green is just inching its way to our goal, and it's absolutely phenomenal to see the kind of support that we've had throughout by our amazing audience, which of course, inspired by the chess that they have been seeing, invests in their own education by going premium and also supporting Kiva's campaign. This is the amount of money that we have raised as a community to give back to the community through chess by going premium. And it's not just been the support of all of our incredible audience, but also grandmasters across the world have come forward to support the cause. We've had Grandmaster Ding Liren, we've had Magnus Carlsen, we've had Anish, we've had Vasil Ivanchuk, Grandmaster Peter Lecco, and many, many others. And today we also received another big donation. Shout out to Grandmaster Pascal, who is making a big contribution of $1,000 worth of premium memberships, which will be given to Brooklyn IS 318 chess team. And it's a charity that Pascal supports. So he will be gifting out the memberships to the students over there. And this is another way that you can contribute by gifting premium membership to your friends, to your families, to young talents across the world. You could either buy the membership for yourself or donate the premium. And of course, as always, just unlimited access to the library, to the intensive improving your chess library, 30% off on premium membership currently using the code Kiva Finals. But of course, the news for that just doesn't stop. We've had Anish Giri with his opening repertoire course, the French. We've had the Magnus Touch dropping the Endgame course, and we also have Grandmaster Yasser Sarahan's course. So we've got the opening taken care of, and we've got the end game taken care of. And now we also have the middle game with winning strategies by Yasser Saravan. Take a look at this.
25.8, 26.8.
Okay. This guy gets the big bucks. Like, what the hell?
So definitely visit chessable.com and check out these intensive, entertaining, and educational courses. You've got Anish Giri taking care of your openings, Yasser taking care of your middle games, and Magnus Carlsen taking care of your end games. I think if you studied all three, you would be playing some superhuman chess right there. What's required right now is, of course, for Hikaru to be playing some superhuman chess because he is playing catch up to Magnus Carlsen's win in round one. Hikaru will be playing with the white pieces next. Peter, Yas, what needs to be done? What are we expecting in the opening phase?
Boy, Tanya, I must say I'm still reeling from the outcome of this game. That was a really scintillating attack. Knight G7 led to that winning position. I'm sure there had to be a defense there somewhere, but remarkable. And if I'm in Hikaru's shoes, I'm just thinking, okay, catch a deep breath, because that was quite a blow, and just get back to what got you the lead, right? Just play good chess, stay ahead on the clock. And Peter, for this particular game, again, I mean, it felt like Magnus, he got the opening, he stayed ahead on the clock himself, and he was ultimately rewarded with quite an attacking victory.
Yeah, absolutely stunning game by Magnus Carlsen. It was clear that white has initiative, but somehow it felt like if black is able to block the position with a timely d5, d4, then the worst has passed for black, and white is simply 2 pawns down with compensation, definitely, but one had the feeling not more than enough compensation. And then all of a sudden, knight takes g7 happened.
Boom.
And practically speaking, when your clock is ticking down, you have like maybe 4 minutes to solve the issue, and you are also like in state of shock. It's very, very tough, because believe me, if somebody tells you that this is a puzzle for you to solve, and you know that there is a defense, that there is a solution to defend black's position, then it's much easier to find that defense when you are actually very angry. How could I give this opportunity for Magnus? Of course, he's crushing me now and so on. Once you have all those thoughts, finding a defense is basically, I think, simply impossible.
And especially with so very little time, Tanya.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And like you were saying that, you feel like there should be a defense for black here. You are right about that in some way, and I just quickly want to take you through a line, but actually knight g7 is still a very, very powerful sacrifice. This move a6, of course, gives white this huge opportunity, and the only way that black could have handled it, of course, very difficult to find, and I've had the help of the computer to help me look at this, but a very instructive and a very creative line. Take a look at this, guys. King g7, queen g5 check is correct, king h8, queen h1. Like I was mentioning, after rook g8, it all falls apart for black, but here black had an interesting move, rook to e8. And the point is that one of the biggest problems in white's position that black needs to make the most of instantly is the back rank weakness. So that's how you're going to counter it. And here, the top move, the top line of the engine is the move like g3. It's a big mess on the board. The sacrifice is still very sound because black's position is, he's still in a lot of trouble. These two bishops on b2, b1 are extremely strong and dangerous. Here, black could think about running away with the king as well with a move like king to g7 or king to g8, and the game continues. But instead of g3, let's take a look at what happens if white plays the most dangerous looking move, which is rook takes c6. If you grab it with the same idea, the difference is that after bishop d4, you have this huge threat of mate on h7 because of the pin along the a1, h8 diagonal. But black's got a really pretty move here, and it's bishop to f5, taking advantage of exactly the back rank weakness that we've been talking about. And let's trade off some pieces. It doesn't matter whether you start with bishop f6 or you start with rook e8, but let's say bishop f6, rook to f6. And if you play rook e8, queen e8, and after queen f6, black can just simply move the king to g8. You can't grab the bishop on f5 with either the queen or the bishop because of the threat on e1. And a move like queen g5, you can just come back with the bishop, or even move your king away with bishop g6 is the simplest answer. Rook e8 had to be played to develop immediate and instant counter chances on the board. But when you're playing on minutes in such a dangerous position, it's extremely difficult to find the accuracy. And like you mentioned, yes, nobody is there to tell you that, this is the point that you need to slow down and have a look.
Absolutely. That's my biggest complaint about those tactical puzzle books, Tanya, is when you have a tactical puzzle book, there's a solution, but sometimes your combinations boomerang. Not all combinations work over the board, unfortunately. We thought about rook e8 because, again, that back rank mate threats, but boy, finding all of those moves, including bishop f5, I have to say, Peter and I are not under the pressure of the ticking clock, so we're pretty calm. We're just enjoying everything, but it was really hard for us to find those moves as well.
Well, Yasser, it's very nice of you sharing the discoveries together, but actually it was your move, rook e8. And when you said rook e8, it immediately hit my heart that yes, the first rank is exactly what you are hoping for. So it was a great find, but we actually have a lift-off of the second game.
We do have a lift-off, and it could be a potential Berlin incoming, and it is on the board. Also, if you look at the screen, we can see that Magnus, in fact, he's in such severe pain that sometimes to adjust his position, he's literally sitting on his knees and not the chair.
Trying to find a comfortable position, and he does. From what I can see, he's rubbing his forehead. He's in anguish, Tanya. This is not good. This is not good. You almost feel like, can we just ask for an hour-long postponement, get some trainer? I mean, in tennis, they allow the trainer to come in and give a massage in case of a muscle cramp. This could be severe, Peter.
Yeah, this is of course terrible. Maybe this also explains the reason why Magnus was so aggressive in game one. He felt like he has to play as quickly as possible and put as much pressure on the opponent as possible right from the beginning, because long games don't suit him. Yeah, it's of course a very new situation. I also don't know what to think of it.
I might ask if Tanya could somehow get some information. A timeout is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a medical timeout, some kind of like, can I just get a 30-minute stoppage so that I can get a masseuse in here? I've never seen it really in online play. I mean, of course, people get ill, and then oftentimes the games are simply postponed. In this remote chess, that's very awkward. But I mean, I'm very sympathetic to Magnus. Looking at him suffering is not what we want to see. And if he were to request a 20-minute timeout, something of that nature, I would give it to him if I was an arbiter. Your thoughts, Peter?
Yeah, of course, this is the question. Did Magnus request that? Does he feel that he has the right to ask that? And how the arbiter will handle the situation. Now that Magnus won game one, I feel like he feels that it would simply not be polite to ask for any help because he's leading with the score.
Okay.
This is, I think, psychologically also putting some extra pressure that if the score would be even, then you feel like, okay, let me ask the arbiter because, okay, I really have this pain. But now he's leading, so it's a tough call. It's a really tough call.
All right, fair enough. Well, we'll let the players suffer through their opening moves. And Peter, I have the impression so many of these positions, these middle game positions with A2, A4, that we are so familiar with from Rui Lopez. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we're still on terra firma in terms of theory. Is this still all theory as far as you're aware, or are we new, Peter?
I think it's kind of theory, but it's not a thematic line at all, because there are so many move orders, and let me just try to explain what has happened. So after the move d3, Magnus used the move d6, which served him so well on day 4 of their match. Yes, I think it was day 4.
Yeah.
And there Hikaru always played the most natural looking move c3, but the move order c3 actually gave black the chance to play the g6 setup, because now after d4, okay, first Magnus used the move bishop d7, and then in his next game he even used the move bishop g7. And this is some relatively recent development from correspondence chess, that black is even able to play bishop g7. And how I remembered that once black plays the move d6, it's more precise to start with castles, because if black goes for the g6 setup, you exactly play the same line with d3, d4, breaking in the center, but it turns out that castles is much more useful than the move c3, okay. Right? In this regard. And after the move short castle, black is actually playing the move bishop e7, and then you play c3, which would exactly happen if you have played c3, black plays bishop e7, white would have castled, yeah? Right. So with the move order short castle first, you basically probably kind of force black of going for the bishop e7 setup, and then you already limited all those g6 options. That's the first thing about the move order. Then later we see a6, bishop a4, castles, rook e1, rook e8. This is a typical type of anti-Berlin position, but it's now already anti-Marshallish, because a6 and bishop a4 had been included. So this basically indicates that it's exactly the same stuff, like if white is playing, this castles, bishop e7, d3. And of course here black has two options, playing with b5, bishop b3, and then d6, which is very natural and it's the most frequently used. But black also has the option of playing d6 when white plays c3, and we are by move orders into the same position like it happened in the game.
Well, one of the things that's really remarkable about chess openings is the transpositions that so frequently take place, and one move order brings you to a same position that a different move order would also have. I think that what you were pointing out, though, Peter, that was really remarkably instructional, how the early castles as opposed to c3 was a much more useful move, and it forced Magnus into playing the black side of a Ruy Lopez proper, so to speak.
Yeah, that's perfectly true. And now here we are seeing one very, very important position which I have in the diagram, because after b5 there are two options, that if you retreat with the bishop on c2, then black has this freeing move d6, d5. Mm-hmm. And if you want to avoid that, then you have to play the move bishop b3, which is slightly counterintuitive, because you feel like now that my pawn is on c3, I can bring my bishop back all the way to c2, I'm winning a tempo, but it does allow d6, d5. If you play the move bishop b3, then if black plays a move like d6, d5, you have this very nice typical trick in the Spanish, Ruy Lopez, e takes d5, knight takes d5, d4, and thanks to the pressure on the d5 knight, black is not able to play e takes d4, because then the knight on d5 is hanging. Mm-hmm. And this is actually the point behind bishop b3, when black usually plays a move like knight a5, bishop c2, c5, and we go towards some Chigorin type of position. Got it.
The bishop c2, d5 on the board, and the players keep playing relatively quickly, Peter.
Yeah, after d5, Hikaru played the move a4. It's basically the only really critical move to challenge black, because you kind of ask him, please show me how you want to solve your problems with the b5 pawn. If you're gonna play b5, b4, that weakens your structures, allows white to fix the pawn structure with a4, a5. Later, the white bishop might return to a4, putting pressure on the knight on c6. The pawn on e5 starts to be vulnerable. Whenever you exchange on e4 and you get these d takes e4, d takes e4 structures, it's also easier to play from the white side because somehow this knight on c6 faces this pawn on c3, so he doesn't really have any good squares. So Magnus's reaction, rook b8, is very, very logical. He wants to keep the pawn on b5, limiting white's bishop on c2. And after a takes b5, a takes b5, h3, we get a position where I believe black should be quite satisfied because it feels like he has, if not fully, but almost fully equalized.
Very nice. Again and again, for me, I always have three goals in the opening. I want my fair share of the center. I want to be able to control as much of the center as I can, but I want to have a fair share. I want effective pieces, and I want a safe king. And the knights on c6, yeah, the knight on c6 might be preferable on g6, but the knight on f6, the bishop on f8, the rook on e8, they make favorable impressions. What is black supposed to be doing with his light squared bishop, Peter? Does that go on the long diagonal, or does it go to the e6 square?
Well, I think that now that Magnus already made up his mind of playing rook b8 against the a4 idea, that indicates that he doesn't want to put his bishop on b7. Okay. I suspect that Magnus wants to bring it to e6, but once you go bishop e6, then you also see that white still has some potential of getting the rook to a6, hitting the knight on c6. So not all that easy to decide what to do. And also, let's not forget that black has the option of actually just changing trading down along the center with d takes c4, d takes c4, even exchanging the queens, and say that, okay, how bad this endgame could be. But the problem about such strategy is that maybe the position is slightly unpleasant, and by fixing the structure, giving up the center, you give free hand for white.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of d5 takes e4. I like maintaining the tension. I don't like just for the reason that you were showing, that this rook could place itself on a6. The rook's on this open file. I'm not a big fan of that. So the rook on b8 doesn't have an open file, Peter. Let me play the move b5, b4 and say, I would like to play as black. b4 takes c3. Your rook has the open a file. I would like the open b file. How do you like b4, Peter?
Well, if you play b4, then you give me the option of going bishop a4.
Okay.
Again, I'm not sure that you like that. But again, it's not the end of the world. However, you don't have any easy way of dealing with the pin. Yeah, you don't want to go bishop d7, you don't want to go bishop b7, but you still got to do something.
Right.
And finally, Magnus did choose the move d takes c4, but connected with a very, very specific idea. So after d4, d4, queen d1, rook d1, he used his momentum just as you wanted to try to open up the b file with the timely b5, b4 move.
Well, there you go. And unfortunately, asked and answered, the white's reaction to the move b4 has got to be bishop a4, Peter.
Yeah, bishop a4 on the board, and Magnus goes bishop b7.
Wow. The player I associate with these type of positions more than anybody else is Levon Aronian. Levon's vaunted Marshall Gambit has scared so many players into playing, the anti-marshals, that he seems to be playing the anti-marshals more than he's playing the marshal itself. And unfortunately for you too, Peter, your Marshall Gambit also terrified your opponents, and they would do anti-marshal-like things that we're witnessing in this game.
Exactly. I mean, when I see this game and I follow all the memories and all those hundreds of hours of analysis of all these anti-marshals came back as memories. The point finally why I give up on Marshall was simply that I never got the Marshall going. I mean, always, as you mentioned, white players started to use the anti-Marshall. And then the question was whether I prefer to play the anti-Marshall or the anti-Berlin, because anyway, the people will not give the Berlin endgame. And then you have to choose between these two. And finally it felt to me like maybe the anti-Berlin is even more practical from the black side.
How intriguing. And you came one game short of winning the world championship. And thanks to the Marshall, I mean, you were just one game away from becoming world champion. So, okay, there you have it, folks. Why did Peter Leko give up the Marshall Gambit? Not because he didn't like the Marshall Gambit. No. It's just that nobody would play it against him. They were always playing the anti-Marshall. And now we have the current situation, Peter. It just looks a little bit more comfortable for white after all this move bishop e3 to set up a type of a deadly threat connected with rook c1.
Yes, but somehow black is getting control. I mean, rook a8 very, very nicely timed. Now white is unable to play rook ac1 because of the pin. He has to take care of his bishop on a4. The move rook dc1, first of all, doesn't have any threat because black can take on a1.
Right.
At the end of the line. So Hikaru says, let me first stabilize this pawn, this bishop on a4 with my pawn, with the move b2, b3.
Protecting the bishop and making rook on a1 to c1 possible. Yeah, looks logical, Peter.
Yeah, looks very logical, but now it's black to move. And my feeling is that this one little half tempo that black got should be able for him. Yeah, and rook e8 played, exactly. That was my instinct immediately, because the point is that white's pawn on e4 is vulnerable as well. So if white captures on d8, then black has this possibility of capturing with the knight on d8, opening up the long diagonal. And if you have these general exchanges, first of all, knight e5 runs into bishop c3, it's even not possible. But even in case, so if that would not be possible, just an exchange on e4 and followed by knight e6 would be also perfectly in black's favor. I mean, there is nothing to worry about. So Hikaru has to make sure to maintain some kind of pressure, but how to do that, because black is about to move his knight from e7 and then the pawn on e4 comes under attack.
Exactly. So rook on d1 to c1 kind of suggests itself. After all, if the knight moves, white could crash down on the c7 pawn, Peter.
Yeah, rook dc1 is an option. But you are still not starting to take on c6, right?
That is true. I'm not, because there is a rook a1 response.
Yeah, exactly. So this gives me one extra
ply, another tempo to do something that you might want to do. Yeah.
On the other hand, it irritates me that I can't move my knight because this pawn on c7 is hanging. I would really love to play something like knight d4 just to get active. Can we check if that works?
You have some point of knight takes b3 after rook takes c7. How do the tactics work, Peter? Rook takes c7.
Yes, if I take on b3,
I take on b7 perhaps, because b4 just happens to be hanging an unlucky happenstance, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a very nice illustration that, all these lines have to be calculated very precisely. Hikaru nevertheless feels like he doesn't want to give up the d file, and he played the move rook ac1.
Right. Okay. So with the move rook takes d1, again, black gets that extra tempo he may need to solve his problems. Interesting. Could he solve his problems with bishop d6? Right.
Exactly. Maybe just go back, because bishop d6 would be very nicely met by knight f5 if not for that this e4 pawn is hanging.
Exactly.
By capturing on e4 would even protect the bishop on d6.
A perfect answer indeed for knight f5, Peter.
Yeah. And if after bishop d6, bishop d6 on the board, if you don't have knight f5, black is able to move his knight away from c6 to e7 going towards g6, covering the f5 square, at the same time hinting at the pawn on e4, then I feel like there is very little white has in this position, if he has anything.
Exactly. My feelings precisely. I'm even thinking that knight c6 to b4, and in such positions, I like to play the Breyer. I was never much of a Marshall Gambit player. I don't know why I wasn't attracted to the Marshall Gambit. For some reason, I was attracted to the Breyer, probably because I got too many Soviet bulletins of the USSR absolute Soviet championships, and it seemed like everybody in those days used to play the classical Rui, and the Breyer was featured, especially in, I want to say, the games of Boris Spassky. So maybe that was an influence. And in this particular position, after the move bishop d6, if I see the move knight b4 or some kind of knight move coming, I start to be attracted to the black position. We do have knight d2 on the board, Peter.
Yeah, knight d2 had to be played. White is trying to get his knight to c4, also makes ready white to play the stabilizing move f2, f3, protecting the e4 pawn. And if f3 is played, then already knight f5 will be an issue. So okay, black has to be careful. How would you react? You would still go along with knight b4, or would you
well, you pointed out a very nice or let's emphasize the nice point that after the desirable, in my view, knight b4, the move f2, f3 stabilizes the center, and knight c4, both knight c4 and knight f5 start to give me concern, especially as I can't play knight d7, knight c5 myself. So, could we go back before the move knight b4, Peter, in this moment? Because the bishop on a4 makes a little bit of a strange impression, right? If I go knight d7 and try to hunt down the bishop, well, I better be careful. I could get myself into trouble. Yeah, knight c. Well, no, I think I'm getting myself into trouble, Peter. Knight c5, knight d6, and if I take on d6, this is very, very bad news for the world champion. So don't play like this, Magnus. Okay, so knight d2 on the board. Knight a5. That's not a very attractive move, Peter, but maybe I have to simply stop knight c4.
Yeah, okay, knight a5, of course, yeah, it's not a move we want to do, because knight on a5 is really misplaced. Black very much wants to go bishop c6, and if he changes this bishop, then everything should be fine. But after rook c1, I still keep some pressure here.
It does feel indeed like you are keeping pressure. No, I don't disagree.
And Magnus went for knight b4. I mean, this is the move that had to be played, and in fact, if white plays the move f3, then you have the option of going bishop c6. So yes. Okay, so knight. Also, another reason why I wanted to play this move knight b4, Peter, is because after a move like f3, if we put f3 on the board just for a moment, there is knight c2 and potentially knight d4. If I can secure my knight on d4, I'm a kind of a happier camper, but maybe I just don't have the time to do that. Well, I mean, knight c2 is a tempo, so this you get.
Right.
And after bishop f2, the question, you want to jump immediately to d4, no?
I don't know. My bishop on b7 is making a sorry impression. Bishop a6. I don't quite have a full understanding of the position, Peter.
Yeah, because maybe it's not easy to understand. Yeah,
that might be one of the reasons why. I had to think of it that way. Okay, knight f. Ooh, I could also tickle bishop e2, bishop d3. Well, it's just a tough game. Oh, no, I I like these heavy strategic maneuvering games, though I must say that I've always found these maneuvering games, and maybe it was because I was so attracted to the games of Karpov and Tigran Petrosian, these beautiful maneuvering games. I've always liked this type of play, Peter.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, one can easily say that this is equal, this is endgame, this is boring, nothing is happening. But there are so many finesses in this position, and it's so easy to go wrong, and
Right.
it's so easy to get outplayed by a great player. So I perfectly understand why Magnus, who is usually the big maestro of all these positions, was taking his time before going knight b4, because it simply the position is still so tricky, and if you just make one inaccuracy, your opponent might get the upper hand.
Exactly. Knight before rook c1, sidestepping any knight c2 treachery, and still angling for knight f5 and knight c4 continuations. Knight d3 on the board, Peter.
Yeah, rook c1 did stop knight c2. On the other hand, it allowed knight d3. The black knight on d3 feels like it doesn't attack anything, but it disturbs white's coordination, and knight b4 played. Where does this white rook will hide? It's not easy to hide it.
It's actually kind of funny because like rook c3, knight a2 is a kind of a disturbing little move. It's like, where's that rook going? I'm pretty sure the rook does not want to end up on some silly square like b2 either, Peter, or b1. So if Hikaru wants to continue the game, he's going to have to play rook c4, and he has done it. But doesn't this give the bishop a6 as a tempo, Peter?
Yeah, it does give the tempo, and now Hikaru is coming back to c1. I'm trying to figure out what his idea might be. Maybe his idea was to lure the bishop away from the b7 square so that there is less pressure on e4.
Okay.
And those he will save a tempo on f3 and getting ready of jumping with his knight to c4 or to f5. But it feels like it's black to move, so black should be fine.
Yeah, and somehow a little coordination has magically appeared in black's position, because again, after knight d3, now the knight is perfectly well defended by the bishop, and it still asks the question, where do you want to put the rook, Peter?
Yeah, now Magnus played the move bishop d3. This is a nice move, because he's hinting at knight c2, attacking the bishop on e3.
Yes, exactly. Wow. Fascinating. And while all of this maneuvering is going on, I just wanted to give a big thank you to our audience. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us this Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour Finals benefiting Kiva. And Kiva is an organization that Chess24 is supporting in their micro loan activities. For those of you who can see, there's a green bar just below my name. That's when Tanya and Peter come on screen. Our goal is to raise $50,000. We're filling up the bar, but the potential is that today may be our very, very last day of broadcast, as Hikaru with a 3-2 lead could potentially win this 6th set to decisively win the match. And then we couldn't solicit you and say, please support our drive. So anyone who is enjoying all of the presentation, the tour itself, the games, the broadcast, go to Chess24, purchase a premium membership. Half will go to Kiva. You can also get 30% off of your membership right now. And in the very near future, the price of a premium membership will go up. There are so much content that premium members enjoy, including that you could get a front row seat for banter blitz sessions and play against the masters. So join with the masters and support the program. By the way, big shout out to Pascal Charbonneau for his recent contribution as well. Great to be able to join the masters. Peter, not much has happened, but the rook on a8, which was pressuring the bishop on a4, but that bishop a4 wasn't moving. So in my view, Magnus made the right decision in grasping the d file.
Yeah, I think also that it's very nice how Magnus reacts to it. The rook on a8 actually does nothing because this bishop on a4 connected with this very powerful pawn on b3, simply protecting this bishop, closed out that rook. And Magnus somehow anticipates that there will be more action coming along the d file, and he wants to make sure that he is ready for it. On the other hand, I also have to say that Hikaru did very nicely by provoking this bishop to d3, because after bishop d3, he had the chance of going rook c3. And all of a sudden, this knight on b4 and the bishop on d3 construction is not working that nicely together. Now the move knight c2, which was desired by bishop d3, is not possible anymore, because then the bishop would be hanging. This also explains why Magnus probably wanted to get support for that bishop with rook d8, and Hikaru did play the move knight c4. What is happening? Is e4 pawn hanging, or you just can't take it because of some... there is this tactics. Yeah, very nice tactics. If black takes, bishop takes e4, then white can take knight e4, knight e4, knight takes d6. If you capture with any piece, then the pawn on c7 is hanging. If you take c takes d6, then there is this very nice double attack with rook c4.
Peter, I'm so delighted once more. I mean, can you imagine? We've had 10 broadcasts, and in those 10 broadcasts, you've only hung a single minor piece. Today, you've hung a rook, which is really, really good. It makes everybody watching the broadcast feel human. Everybody watching this broadcast is feeling very, very good. You made everybody happy, Peter.
Yeah, very nice. I told you right from the beginning that I'm very, very exhausted myself. Of course, the line then correctly goes like white first takes on d6, black takes on d6, you take on e4, and then you go rook c4 and you win the piece. But yeah, Magnus of course says, no, thank you very much. I understand what I have to do. And he did capture with the bishop on c4. I think this is an ultra class move, because after bishop takes c4, one could argue that this light square bishop is such an important piece from black side. So very difficult psychologically to even consider giving it up. But on the other hand, there are new dynamics to the position. And after bishop c4, rook c4, knight d3, Magnus feels that he has nice harmony and he doesn't need the light square bishops. His knight on f4 will be powerful enough and will give him enough counterplay.
Exactly. Somehow this knight maneuver to f4 makes a pleasing impression. If black could just get in moves like g6 and king g7 as well, the knight on g3 would be facing no future. The bishop on a4, normally you talk about the two bishops. The bishop on a4 is nicely defended and so on. But I like the way my friend Jan Timman describes the Spanish as the Spanish torture. And Bobby Fischer felt the same way. But for the Spanish torture to really exist, the bishop has to be on the b3 diagonal, the Joko piano diagonal. And here I don't feel that the bishop on b3 is that impressive, Peter.
Yeah, okay. Of course, white's bishop is very, very nice.
It's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, white can go bishop c6. Also, white can also regroup with bishop b5, bishop c4.
That's the diagonal that I think white wants his bishop upon.
Yeah, but on the other hand, simply there are no real targets in black's position, because this seemingly passive bishop on d6 protects the only weakness on c7.
Right.
And by expanding on the king side with h5, king g7, and eventually after h5, there is a positional threat of going h4. So if white plays the move h4 himself, which I would assume white should be doing after h5, but that's also no concern for black.
Right. So there's so-called bad bishop on d6. The passive bad bishop on d6 plays a very healthy role of protecting the knight on f4, the pawn on e5, as well as the pawn on c7 being protected itself. Reminding everybody of an absolute masterpiece that was played by Magnus Carlsen against Elijah Firouzja in the Vaikanze tournament. Where Magnus on the black side showed that these types of position, strangely enough, hold a lot of poison for white as well. It's not just play on one goal, as we often see in a Spanish torture, Peter.
Yeah, of course. White has to be careful, and it's a very, very high quality maneuvering game here. Of course, knight f1 had to be played if white would get the chance, bringing the knight all the way to c4 and also getting h4, g3 and kicking away the knight. It's the typical scenario white is trying to achieve. On the other hand, black now has time to maneuver his pieces, and the move knight d7 is on the board, connected with somewhere like a timely, okay, knight e6 says not yet. Maybe it's possible, because I'm not sure that after knight e6, you can really take this pawn on h6, because black has some ideas with g6, g5, but let's believe that you still have to make the move king g7 first. But anyway, what I wanted to illustrate that once the knight will be kicked, for example, after, let's make this move h4, king g7, g3, knight e6, yeah, you really got rid of this powerful knight, but black is aiming towards the c5, d4 squares. And it seems like black has enough. And look at this, knight d2 answered by bishop c5.
By the way, that's just the timing of that move was ideal, because again, bishop c5, knight c5, rook c5, rook d2, and looky, suddenly that knight on f4 is an absolute Thor, and the bishop on a4 is offside. So bishop c5, strategically speaking, an ideal move for black, Peter.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it was a very nice tactic. The question is now that what happens? Okay, Hikaru clearly missed the move bishop c5, so he had to retreat with the knight to f1.
Okay.
And here is the big question. Because if you trade this bishop, it might look like it's great. On the other hand, then white get access to the c7 pawn, and the knight on e3 might be very nicely placed. So I'm not sure about bishop takes e3. And I'm also not sure that Magnus wants to go back, because he feels that he can use this momentum, and exactly knight e6 played. It's very much in the spirit.
Very nice. Again, I just think we're seeing a really just a high quality maneuvering game. It's not to everybody's taste. Everybody like game one, attack, sack. But for me, I was always, I love these maneuvering games. To me, they were sparkling. I found them very attractive. This move, bishop c5, this moves knight e6. I mean, I'm just soaring with the understanding that the players are showing. However, I better quiet myself, Peter. I did not see knight g4. That comes with a strike against h6 and e5.
Yeah, and this is the typical illustration that, one thing is understanding what is happening, and the other thing is to have very precise calculation. The big question is, did Magnus miss it? Because he simply felt like everything he does makes so much sense and he felt right, or he had foreseen it and he believes that he has a nice way of dealing with this problem. But what is this nice way?
You beat me to the punch. That was the question I had for you. Wow, did he? I mean, again, the logic, as you say, the logic of his moves really had a beautiful flow. Everything was very nice. And then suddenly at the end, there's this scorpion sting of knight g4 with this fork against h6 and e5. Now, okay, the only vulnerable pawn is the b3 pawn. So do we go rook check and rook b1, or do we just go rook d3, Peter?
Yeah, well, the problem is that I also very much would love to give my e5 pawn and get the b3 pawn in as an exchange.
Yeah.
But the problem is that there was the chance that white first captures on h6 and then comes back to g4, and I still might not be able to protect my pawn on e5. And that exchange would already be really terrifying. And Magnus came up with the move rook e7. But is this a clear pawn?
Looks so. Now, of course, the rook c3, that's a landmine. You don't want to step on that square. Anybody who's ever had any experience with bullet chess knows the pain of the knight fork, knight e2, Peter. So no rook c3, but I'm supposing rook b2?
Yeah, rook b2, but then black plays the move c5.
Perfectly. Now it starts to make sense once more. Either f5 and rook b7 or f6 and rook b7 on black's agenda. By the way, when the rook gets to b7, it's not like we're just going to take the pawn on b3. There is the nasty c5, c4 also as a contentious move.
Yeah, I like Hikaru's move, of course, because rook c5 had to be
better.
played. You just cannot put your rook in such a passive position on b2. Yeah, rook c5, of course, f6, b4 played, and black played the move c6.
With the idea of, well, threat is too strong, but certainly with the idea of rook b7. Well, again, a well-played game, but I've been thrown off by the loss of the pawn. Peter, your take, is it enough activity by black for the pawn?
Well, definitely doesn't feel like enough, but the material situation is already such that black has excellent drawing chances. He has the activity. This knight on d4, of course, is very, very powerful. On the other hand, all white's pieces are also perfect. I wonder that maybe black's idea is to go rook a7 and try to invade to the second rank, because then connected with some knight e2, knight f4 ideas, you can combine pressuring the b4 pawn and pressuring the g2 pawn.
Absolutely agreed. I like this idea of rook a7. I might be off-put by rook a5, but you could first go rook b7, provoke rook c4, and then your move rook a7. That combines very nicely, because then there's no preventing the black rook from coming to the second rank. He's included the move g6, g5 as Magnus because there was a potential threat of f4, Peter.
Yeah, there was f4, and also in general something like h4 would also be in white's favor just to get that move in.
Okay.
So usually this g5 move with another pawn on e5 weakens the f5 square in such situations, but the very powerful knight on d4 makes does a very good job covering that weakness.
Yeah.
And Magnus, I think, absolutely rightly judged that stopping h4 or f4 has main priority now.
Wow. Again, the judgment of both these players, they're making these really, really, really difficult decisions so quickly. And even saying that, I do notice that Hikaru has slipped behind Magnus, 140 on the clock to 222. Again, obviously, 10-second bonus for each move completed. But, I don't know, Peter, I think I might just pull the parachute and say, okay, I see the rook coming to a2. I'm not happy. I'm going to go knight f5 or knight c2. And, let's just make a draw. Well done. And he's done it.
And we have seen, knight c2, the knights were exchanged. Black played the move rook a4. Very nice, because, of course, black with this construction is ready to play 4 against 3. So White
Right.
has to try to keep the b4 pawn alive. There was no other way, because if you want to play rook c4, then black plays the move c6, c5 and exchanges these pawns using the pins. So rook b2 had to be played, rook a3, and king f2 played by Hikaru.
Right, and I was about to say that nice little tactic that you pointed out with c6, c5. That type of a move is such a key move for the defender, so that you force the trade of pawns. A very, very, very nice instructional moment there, Peter. And Hikaru is doing his best to say, look, I've got the extra pawn, and in turn, Magnus is doing his best to keep his pieces active. But wait a minute, that was a kind of a surprise turn for me. I thought that Magnus was going to go rook c3 instead of the move king h5, so that he would always be able to have this rook c4 and keep White's rook passive. He didn't do that, Peter.
Yeah, rook c3 was kind of desirable, but then White goes king e2, king d2, and after rook c4 goes king d3, comes rook d4 check, can be met by king c3, and I'm starting with rook d2. And also in the game, I mean, okay, Magnus wanted to have counterplay with king h5, king h4, but this very nice timely move after king h5, rook c2 was very important, because now if black goes after the b4 pawn, then at the end of the day, the f6 pawn is hanging. So
Right.
he had to go passive with rook a6, and it meant White got extra time and could immediately activate his king. So we saw king e2, king h4, king d3, king g3, king c4 happen. And after rook a1, king c5, it feels like White has very good winning chances, but this rook b1 defense was nice. If White wants to win the c6 pawn, then he might, but okay, I have many options. Rook c4 would allow black to collect maybe too many pawns.
I have to say, Peter, that I absolutely hate what Magnus has done. And I really think that he's on the precipice. What about king d6, rook b4, king e6, and just trying to take the whole king side structure off the board? That c6 pawn isn't going anywhere in my view. What's happening in that case, Peter?
Yeah, a very nice spot. I mean, with this king d6, king e6, it looks very, very scary.
Very scary.
Very scary. Okay, Hikaru did choose something else. He played the move rook e2, slightly surprising. Rook
Okay.
c1 check, king d6. Okay, the idea is still there, marching with the king to e6. But why he had to put his rook on e2, it's a bit of a mystery.
That's a mystery, because I like the rook on c2. It was eyeballing the c6 pawn very nicely. Again, time trouble is quickly becoming a factor, Peter. If we just continue the line that we kind of were looking at, king e6 for just a moment, rook b4. Again, I would have preferred the rook on the c file. Let's see what would have happened. King f6. I'm assuming king f4, rook back to c2, c5. And if I bring my king now back to d5, Peter, king e6, for example.
E6. Okay, I just wanted to illustrate that, yeah, this is a very nice pawn sacrifice, because after rook takes c5, black has this intermediate check with rook b6. And after the king has to move, then black gets active with rook b2 and gets enough counterplay, collecting White's weak pawns.
Right.
So, but I mean, what did Hikaru do? He didn't play king e6, and he didn't take. He played rook c3, but this is like an empty move. Check king e7, rook b2. Is Magnus escaping now?
Yeah. Why not? If White loses the f3 and the h3 pawn, it's an easy draw. Yeah. Oh my goodness! I think a Houdini-like escape by Magnus. I think he misjudged that ending with the move king h5. If we could go back to that moment, Peter, when king h5 was on the board, because you mentioned rook c3, king e2, but I wanted to continue king h5, king d2, rook c4, king d3, rook d4, king c3, king. Yeah, and I thought, well, here at least this looks much more challenging. I want to put it like that. If the king gets to g3, the way it happened in the game, I really thought, my goodness, Magnus was playing with fire, and I thought he was lost, Peter, frankly. That was
it did feel lost, but also here, I mean, there is this pawn endgame, which is so strange. I mean, I've never seen this pawn, because it feels like black is in time to collect, but is black really time to collect?
Right.
I'm going, and you still cannot get a passer, but okay, you can go king g3, right?
Right.
And then, this is fine, yeah.
This is the queen and pawn endgame. Yeah, wow. Peter, Tanya, that game, Tanya, had us on the edge of our seats. What was happening at the end? Did Magnus slip?
That was indeed yet again, an incredible fight. And I think one of the ideas that I found a more human approach, perhaps, that could have held on to the position. Of course, Hikaru got a big chance, but if we just back up before king h5 and white went king f2. And right about here, one of the ways to do it is actually to follow white's king as well with the black king. And you just simply go king f7. If you go king g3, you come back with the king to g6. If you go king e2, you come back with the king to e6, and kind of try and keep this position, because it's very hard for white to activate the rook, keeping the b4 pawn protected as well. The way that Magnus went, I think he had a big slip around here, because once white's king got activated, it was an extremely dangerous position, and keeping the rook passive on a6 gave white a big opportunity. Because there was so much happening, I wasn't exactly able to check the exact moment where perhaps white had a big chance. And I think it was around here that we were looking at the end game, Peter, and when you pick up the pawn on f6.
Mm-hmm.
In the game to
yes,
pick up,
in the game, if we just move on.
Mm-hmm.
When the black king comes to f4, king f6, king f4, and instead of rook c3, it probably made a lot of sense to pick up, like you were saying, just simply either pick up the pawn on c5 or walk with the king to e6, d5 to pick up this pawn. But the move that Hikaru played just suddenly gave Magnus a chance to come back and to get this extra tempo, like you pointed out. So I think this was the critical moment when he actually let go of the big advantage. You don't have so much time in this rook pawn ending to make moves like rook c3, which feel like a no move, really. So a surprising choice. And I wonder if this was a mouse slip from Hikaru, and was he actually intending to go rook c5, but was it a slip? Because rook c3 to me makes absolutely no sense.
I think, Tanya, the move that Hikaru maybe missed was rook b6, because if you play rook c3 and black in turn makes a no move, then there's suddenly g3 check, and after king takes g3, king e5 or king g5 both, and you've got this threat of f4 check, and maybe, in his mind, under time trouble, under the duress of the clock, Hikaru was only thinking about what's good for him, and if he could get in g3, he was happy. But the move rook b6 just spoiled everything that white was trying to construct, Tanya.
And that's absolutely a very critical point. You want to play rook b2, but you want to make sure that you push white's king away from attacking your own pawns, and rook b6 check was that intermediate move. No idea if rook c3 was intended or was a mouse slip. Did he miss rook b6? What happened? Because I also feel a move like rook c5 is extremely just like a hand move that you make when you're down on the clock, not down on the clock, but playing on minutes. A big miss, really, where Hikaru managed to create some chances to equalize the game. Of course, that means that Magnus Carlsen still leads the set 1.5 to half. We've got 2 more rapid games coming up. And with that, let's also take a look at what's been going on Twitter, because just like us, yes, Peter, our audience is just so thrilled at what a final this is. let's see what you guys had to say. And we had Jay writing in with, man, game one of this set was simply incredible. Broadcasters are saying that apparently Magnus has a non-chess related back injury that is troubling him. Impressive to play that game while in pain. An absolute sensational game that was, Magnus striking with the knight g7 blow and a complete knockout of a move that took the point home. Some inaccuracies followed, but he was able to do some damage control and eventually win. And for those of you who are just joining us and perhaps just joined in game two, as you perhaps saw on the webcam, Magnus Carlsen can barely be seen on it. He is suffering from a very, very severe back pain due to an injury, and sometimes is looking for a comfortable spot because he's in anguish to even sit on his chair. A very difficult situation really for Magnus, playing this win on demand set and also feeling extreme physical pain. But the world champion is leading the set with his first game victory. We also had, let's get the next one in. We had Andrea writing in with, Magnus Carlsen can play an amazing attack against Hikaru when he mostly needs it. Don't forget the two players had just 15 minutes. Great entertainment, a thriller, and an exquisite lesson on modern chess. Absolutely, because modern chess, or as we know it, is evolving. It is becoming faster, shorter time controls. It's moving to online. And it's also interesting to see what impact this will have on over-the-board chess returns. But indeed, these are the two best players in the world, or at least the two who have made it, the two best players of the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour 2020 as well. We've seen Magnus has won 3 out of the 4 events that he participated in. Hikaru has been a finalist in 2 out of the 3 events that he participated in. Undoubtedly, the MVPs of the tour facing off in the finals in an epic rivalry. And we also had, let's move on to the next one. We had Dread writing in with, Magnus looks in physical pain in game 2. Is he okay, or is Hikaru torturing his soul again? I wouldn't be surprised if Magnus, in fact, did have some sleepless nights and had a sleepless night, especially yesterday with the way set went, and coming into today with it being such a critical day for the world champ. And as we were talking about this, that he has suffered from an injury today a little before the game. And this has left him with some severe back pain. It is being handled and it is being managed. Let's move on to the next one. We had Hamad writing in, and oh my God, I am so jealous of that photograph that I see, because those are our hot drops from the Legends of Chess, the mugs that we had. The Legends of Chess are glued to Chess 24 to see the final game of the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour. And there you have it. Check out the store. This is an amazing collection, Hamad, and definitely have a look at the store. And talking about the store, of course, you can check out the mugs, but we've got more excitement for our audience and for all the chess fans. Not only can you pick up these mugs, you can also book, and you can also get a chance to play against these legends. Let's have that up, because you can reserve a spot against Vishy Anand, Magnus Carlsen, Dingleren, and many more of the chess legends. Check out the store for what's going on and how you can do that. There are a lot of offers there, and talking about that, of course, if you want to play against the very best in the world, you also want to learn from the very best in the world. And for that, we've got everything covered. And for that, there is a great deal going on the Play Magnus membership. So there's a special price on the Play Magnus membership, and for the first time ever, you get both the apps, the Magnus Trainer as well as the Tactics Trainer, and save 40% on it. And these are 2 amazing apps to work on your game on the go. The Tactics Trainer is a brilliant way to get your tactical skills on point, and it's been created by some of the best puzzle experts of the world. Definitely a must-have on any mobile device or your laptop. So check that out. And the Magnus Trainer is also an extremely special way to train your games, in which there are lessons and content developed by the world champion himself, along with his team of grandmasters, in an extremely engaging and interactive format. The contents on the Magnus Trainer are constantly updated. So yes, if you can't have enough of Magnus Carlsen's play during the tour, you can learn from him. So check out on playmagnus.com. There's a great deal going on that. Let's move on to what else we heard from our audience on Twitter, on social media. Bhavik writing in with, I want to ask Yasa with great humbleness, and I do see Yasa's with us, so great timing. Should chess also have awards? Oh my God, I love this question. Move of the year, game of the year, player of the year, match of the year. I think I would love to get Yas and Peter's thoughts on all these. Yes, let's start with the player of the year. Who would you pick for 2020?
I don't know who I would pick. It would probably come down to one of these two players, and depending on the outcome of this entire match. I just want to say there was at one time a chess Oscars, which I thought was really, really, really great. And I thought that annually there ought to be a banquet where there was literally a chess Oscars that celebrated exactly these types of awards, the best player, the best book, the best streamer, like just think of as many awards as you can and give them out, because I think that they're so deserving, so to speak. So yes, to your tweet, yes, there should be awards recognizing greatness.
I completely agree. I would love to see these awards as well. And Peter, what about you? If you had to say I feel like if you had to say the match of the year, that would be the easiest to pick right now, because we are witnessing it right now. We are in the middle of it right now. Well, not at the middle, but the very, very end of it right now, because ladies and gentlemen, Hikaru Nakamura is one set away from clinching the Magnus Carlsen chess tour. Magnus Carlsen in a win on demand situation where if he wants the match to go on, he needs to clinch today's set. What an epic tour it has been. What an absolutely sensational final it's been. And if you all want to see more of this, if you want to be a part of more such incredibly thrilling action, then please do consider going premium. There's a 30% off currently. And as we know that this final could end today or potentially tomorrow, but it could not potentially it could end today or tomorrow. The code Kiva finals expires once the tour ends. So do consider going premium, because that would enable Chess24 and help all of us be able to put out this amazing content out there for you, to put out more such tournaments, to put out more such action out there for you. A lot of you have been asking, what is next? This tour is coming to an end. What's coming up? We're going to be keeping you updated on that very soon. I'll be coming up with more information on that on today's broadcast. But for now, definitely consider going premium, especially if you've enjoyed everything that Chess24 has done in response to the pandemic and to ensure that we keep getting world-class chess entertainment. All right, Peter, yes, 1.5 minutes to go for game 3. Magnus Carlsen will be playing again with the white pieces. What are we expecting in terms of the opening?
Well, I was going to say that the English a little bit got sidelined. The London got a little bit sidelined. Peter, I think it's time that the world champion just challenged directly D4, not necessarily the Nimzo Indian, but the Queen's Gambit declined. Remember, if he wins this game, and what a relief that would be for Magnus, he would win the set and he could go deal with his back pain issues. Peter.
Yeah, it's a very tough call. We have seen Magnus started with 1e4.
And are we going to see a Berlin shutdown, Peter?
Yeah, this is the big question, because we are seeing bishop b5 and Hikaru is thinking. Is it Hikaru really thinking? No, knight f6 played, And now the big question is, what is Magnus's strategy? He goes for the rook e1 line, so he wants to be solid. And he goes for c3. This means that Magnus basically wants to shut this game down.
Right, a draw. We've seen this multiple times in this match. And again, while this might not be the most satisfying for chess fans, keep in mind what the players want to do is simply win the match, end of story. So whatever they think will bring them closer to victory, that's what they're going to do. And sometimes it means making a very, very short draw, as we've just witnessed. And by the way, I was watching Magnus on screen as he went to get up from the seat. He went, no, that's not working. I mean, and then he just did it a little bit gingerly. He is suffering, Peter, and he's probably thinking, look, I want to get this set over with ASAP.
Yeah, perfectly understandable. However, so far during this match, this incredible match between Hikaru and Magnus, whoever tried to play it safe from the white side got punished. Yeah, that's kind of when we wanted to discuss what Magnus' strategy might be for this game. I had exactly this psychological aspect in my mind, that will Magnus really shut it down and play a draw, because after all, it backfired already in previously. But on the other hand, if he's in severe pain, then every 3 minutes which he gets is a very, very big bonus. And in this case, it's a very logical reaction. So now the question is how Hikaru will deal with the situation. He did have a golden opportunity out of the blue, by the way, in game 2. And if we will have time, maybe we can go back to this second game to analyze a little bit this endgame, which in my opinion was very, very, it was played like super class for a very long time. And exactly when it felt like Magnus, let me just get that position back. You remember we discussed about this, that Hikaru missed the move knight d2, bishop c5, right?
Clear.
Yeah, clear. And Magnus has something like 3 minutes at this moment. Hikaru had like four minutes, and maybe Magnus felt like, wow, I solved all my problems finally. And after knight f1 retreat, he just relaxed and played the move like knight e6, because it's such a pleasing move and it makes perfect sense. Looks like bishop takes d7 is kind of a draw offer. And if you are not taking on d7, you have nothing to play for. So Magnus blitzed out knight e6, and all of a sudden, to his horror, he had to realize after Hikaru played knight g4 that there is a double attack on his pawns on h6 and e5. And believe me, once you felt like you played a very nice game and you are in the lead, and all of a sudden you face with the situation that you might lose this game, it's a terrible feeling.
Absolutely, Peter. And it was remarkable to me, the composure that Magnus did exactly at this moment, because knight g4 hits you like a cold shower and you go, oh, geez, knight f6 check, knight takes e5, knight takes h6. And his composure in finding exactly what he did find. He found rook e7 and knight d4 and f7, f6 and c7, c6. And suddenly with the moves rook b7, he's not out of the woods, but he's getting really, really close to the coveted draw. And that was impressive, because it's very easy to lose your head when you've been hit with an unexpected move.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very nice defensive resource. On the other hand, I believe that exactly at the moment when he was again relieved that, I survived this adventure, because it feels like this rook endgame should be quite drawish, if not draw. Then his senses got simply tricked, yeah, because the move king h5 is so natural and it shows such high class, yeah, that you are immediately activating and you are trying to enter with your king. On the other hand, after this very, very strong move played by Hikaru, rook c2, highlighting that moving away with the king from g6, from the f6 pawn, forced black to go passive with rook a6, and after king e2, king h4, king d3, king g3, king c4, to be honest, I felt like Hikaru is about to bounce back and he gonna win this game.
Exactly. And for me, the move king h5 is a fantastic move. It's a bad move, but it's a fantastic move. Why? Because it goes to show what makes these players great. Magnus is a pawn down. He should be doing exactly what Tanya said. Go king f7, shadow the white king, make a draw. But the move king h5 is like, I want to make a draw on my terms. And by the way, maybe the move King H5 gives me winning chances too. So sometimes these players are maximalists, Peter, and like they go past the boundaries of what they should, but we love them for it. Tanya, set the stage for us. Again, another exciting set.
Another exciting set, and now it is Hikaru who is in a must-win situation going into the last rapid game of today's set. Hikaru is playing catch-up with 2-1, 2 for Magnus, 1 for Hikaru, and which means that if he wants to take it into tiebreak, he's got to win the next game with the white pieces. And of course, the action might have been slow in this particular game of this particular set, but the action's been immense on all our platforms. Yas Peter, a big shout out to our audience on YouTube, on Twitch, on Chess24, the chat there. You guys have been incredible, and thank you so much for all your support and hanging out with us, watching this amazing chess entertainment show that Chess24 has put together, which honestly has been nothing short of spectacular and sensational chess. Let's take a look at some of the tweets that we had. Okay, we're gonna wait up with that. Before we go on to that, of course, the big question on everyone's mind after seeing such incredible play is always, how can they improve their own chess? What is it that they can do? I think all of us are so inspired by seeing such a star cast and such a stellar show of performance that we all want to know what it is that we can do to actually invest in our own education, and what is it that we can do to get strong at the game. And of course, the chess action, as always, never stops. We've got it all covered for you, from the best courses from the best in the world. Check out Anisha's course on the opening. Check out the Magnus Touch, which is an incredible course on the Endgame. And of course, we have to cover it up with what comes in the middle, which is the middle game. Yas coming out with his winning strategies. Have a look.
25.8, 26.8.
Okay. This guy gets the big bucks. Like, what the hell?
No, but nobody likes the French. I also didn't like the French, but the course makes it great because like it's a opening, but with I've done so much work to make it actually kind of, first of all, correct, to like basically correct. Also like fun. I mean, I'm making, like, I basically recreate, like I take this crappy French and make something great out of it.
My name is Sebastian Mihailov, and I bring to you, along with the world champion Magnus Carlsen, the wonderful app Tactics Frenzy. Solve millions of unique, high quality and entertaining chess puzzles that have all been quality checked by strong grandmasters like Jon Ludvig Hammer and Jan Gustafsson. Become a member today and compete for monthly prizes sponsored by Chessable, Chess24, Magnus Trainer, and of course, the king himself, Magnus Carlsen. We have made sure that no matter how good you are at chess, you can enjoy this app and get the challenge of your life. Alireza Veruja, Alexander Grishik, Sergei Karyakin, among a lot of elite players, they all love the app, and I can assure you, you will as well. Download the app today and become a chess champion.
Our partner for the tour final is Kiva, the non-profit with a mission to expand financial access to help underserved communities. Kiva does incredible work providing microloans to help people around the world create opportunity for themselves and their communities. When the pandemic started, Kiva set up a global COVID-19 response fund to help small businesses get back on their feet. Their target? To raise $50 million to support thousands of people around the world. Chess24 wants to help make that happen. During the tour's final, we will be donating 50% of all proceeds from new premium memberships to Kiva. Go premium, and you will not just be supporting us and getting the best chess entertainment out there, you will be supporting people in times of need through Kiva. And if you are premium already, you can buy sponsored premium memberships for schools in cities and countries of your choice in our shop. Let's show how chess can play its part together.
The dream is, of course, to get better at chess, but the dream is also to play against some of the best in the world. And we've got that covered for you, because check out chess24.com, the store on the website. You can book a spot for a simul against some of our legends who have participated on the tour. You could book your spot against Vishwanathan Anand, against world champion Magnus Carlsen, world number 3 Dingler, and many, many others. So definitely go to the store and check out if you want to challenge, well, the best of the best in a game. And also, the big thing has been about chess education and investing in your own game. So consider going premium to do that. If you're going to play against the best in the world, you need to prepare strong for it. You need to have all your opening repertoire and your middle game strategies all going for you. And there's a 30% off on premium by using the code Kiva Finals. And of course, 50% of all memberships during this final do go in for the Kiva campaign. Once again, a big shout out to all our audience who has contributed in this great cause, who contributed not only and invested not only in their chess education, but also towards making an impact in our community by supporting the Kiva campaign. And a big shout out and a big thank you to the generosity of the Linderus Abbey Preservation Society. They were the hosts of the Linderus Abbey Rapid Challenge, the second event of the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour. And they have supported the campaign by contributing €3,000 worth of premium memberships. A big shout out to them. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, no better time than now to invest in your own chess education, but also leave an impact on the society, on the community through chess. Also, a big thank you to international master Sebastian Mihailov, who is contributing €500 worth of premium membership to Norwegian school children following our stream on Twitch and YouTube. Thank you so much, Sebastian. And of course, Norway's chess boom all comes down to the world champion and everything that he's done. And right now, his task is cut. We've got action on the board. Hikaru Nakamura with the white pieces and anti-Berlin. Yes, Peter, call the action.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya, and thank you, everyone, for your support. Peter, we just saw Hikaru playing the very precise castles. He comes back and he plays c3, allowing g6. Was this a slip? I hate to say it, but I loved the castles and your explanation for it, Peter.
Yeah, I'm also completely perplexed what is happening, and Hikaru taking his time. This is not a good sign.
Yeah, it feels like a slip. Previously, we had seen castles, bishop e7, c3, and we got a very intriguing Rui Lopez. Blah, blah, blah. I've been commentating too long, Peter. A Rui that almost allowed Hikaru to squeeze out a victory when he really, really needed it. Now we have a repeat of what happened in a previous set that, Magnus had no problems as black.
Yes, in those games, but when Magnus played that very specific g6, bishop g7, at that moment, somehow Hikaru ran into it. It felt like, he played the move d4, and the move bishop g7 came like a cold shower to him. And he didn't know how to react to this bishop g7 and didn't manage to pose any problems. In fact, it was exactly the same fourth game of the day, and he was in a must-win situation. By now, I think he also managed to understand how to treat this position from the white side, and he opted for castles, bishop g7, rook e1, castle, knight bd2. So no direct action with d4, because if white would play the move d4 here, it would exactly transpose to that game, which saw this happen. And from here we got this bishop c6, bc, knight bd2, rook e8, queen c2, c5 stuff, which was so stunning.
And handled beautifully by Magnus, I might say, on the black side. But yes, please continue, Peter.
Yeah, now Hikaru makes sure that first he develops. I mean, there is no direct confrontation in the center yet. So both sides try to make useful moves. Knight bd2, rook e8, knight f1, a6, bishop a4. Everything very typical. Black did get his bishop immediately to g7, contrary to all those Spanishes where you first go bishop e7, you're going to go rook e8, bishop f8, bishop g7. So one can argue that, so didn't Magnus win a couple of tempis? Yes, he won a couple of tempis to bring the bishop to g7, but since the position did not clarify yet in the center, there are new aspects in the position. And if I remember correctly, there were times when this position was debated quite heavily, but it was something like 15 years ago.
Yeah, and it has always been kind of my feeling that when Black got the fianchetto in an accelerated way, just as you were saying, Peter, saving himself the tempo of bishop f8 to e7, bishop back to f8, and then eventually bishop g7. In other words, when this pawn is already on g6, then having the knight on g3 is not that attractive proposition. Now, having said that, Hikaru's planted the knight on g3. He's probably preparing the typical h3 d4 advance, and he says, okay, we just got a position. I may not necessarily have a big advantage, but there's play and I need to win, so I'm keeping a lot of pieces on the board, Peter.
Yes, the point is that, white really wants to play the move h3 and d4. On the other hand, if white does this, then I certainly have the feeling like black won some time, by bringing the bishop to g7 immediately in basically just g6, bishop g7. And Magnus says no, you know what? I got my bishop to g7.
Right.
I want to be the first striking in the center, and he goes d6, d5.
Which again makes a lot of sense. In that game too, we felt that Magnus was really just on the precipice of equality, maybe a little slip from the middle game, but certainly he has nothing to complain about as far as my eyes can see. Now, on the other hand, again, we kind of talk about that maybe the knight on c6 is just a smidge misplaced offsides, but it can't be so serious, Peter.
Yeah, that's typically the only issue Black is having in this position, because everything else is very harmonious. Black goes b5, and there is this typical Zaitsev idea going bishop b7 and then rerouting your knight to b8 and to d7, which I believe is very much according to your heart, how you feel about this position.
Yep.
After you said that you love to play the Breyer.
Exactly. Now, we don't have the Zaitsev bishop on b7. Instead, Magnus has played a move when you've got your pawn on h6. I kind of always thought that the bishop on e6 is very nice. Another thing that I would just say about this position in particular, if you just take the move bishop e6 backwards for just a moment, one of the things, I love space. I've always been in favor of having a lot of space. If there are those of you out there in the audience that think that the move d5, d4 is attractive, well, join the Yasser One Chess Club. Me too. I like these types of space gathering moves. When the bishop is on e6 and when the pawn is on a4, sometimes the move d4 can even come with good strengths. So by keeping the tension of the pawns on d5 and e4, Black always gives himself this option as well, Peter, the option of playing d5, d4.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's also the whole position reminds me very much of a giuoco piano in Italian, when Black basically got everything possible. Mm-hmm. He is the one who pushed this d5 and managed to get his bishop to g7.
Right.
On the other hand, exactly because I know a couple of games, and one of the games, I think Kramnik versus Anand from Tal Memorial, something like this comes to my mind, where all of a sudden Kramnik proved that, you know what, if you are having this bishop on g7 and it seems that you have everything under control on the king side, I'm going to try to make good use of the c5 square, which is not under control. And he did a masterpiece. I mean, please check that game out. It was Kramnik versus Anand, I believe. It was a very nice play by Kramnik.
All right, we do have a couple of moves, bishop e6 and bishop d2, a modest move, Peter.
Yeah, modest, but okay, white develops very much in the spirit of the Italian, also hinting somewhere at queen c1, just, okay, it's not like winning, I mean, trying to win a pawn. Of course, Black will play the move king h7 a tempo, but somehow also sidestepping any kind of exchanges on the d file, and White's typical idea is somehow to advance a4 and b4. And once you get those pawns, then to give the move to Black and say, I know everything is perfect, but everything is so nicely put already. Please make another move.
Right. You kind of reached the Zouk point. Black is at the zenith of his piece configuration. Do something. I'm not a big fan of the knight on f6. And I've seen Levon Aronian, if we're going to drop some names, you drop Vladimir Kramnik, I'll drop Levon Aronian. I've seen Black at times maneuver the knight on f6 to d7 and somehow getting it over there on the queen side. Not necessarily because I wanted to protect c5, but more like maybe even Mickey Adams has played for knight b6, takes a knight c4, Peter.
Yeah, a very nice reaction in general, because White would love to get b4, a4, I mean, or a4, b4 in. But for this purpose, knight d7, knight b6 would be a great prophylactics, because then definitely black is ready for all kinds of jumps on the weak square, c4. And if we look at the colleague on g3, then we understand that, yeah, this knight has much more perspective on the queen side. However, Magnus used a completely different approach. He placed the queen on d7, indicating that the knight from f6 will not move for quite some time.
So queen d7, a4 played rather quickly. And Peter, I was about to say, if you're playing queen d7, it strikes me that Magnus simply wants to centralize his rooks. Makes perfect sense to me, and play the move rook on a to d8, which is the follow-up. He played a, queen d7, vacating the d8 square, and he's followed up with rook d8. Now, I like what you said a moment ago. The bishop d2 move was modest, but the move queen c1 could sidestep a lot of potential trades down the d file. Now, if you go queen c1, king h7, I'm still kind of looking for an active plan for white. What do you reckon that could be?
Yeah, the big question is, do you really have an active plan, or do you need it, or you just should try to improve your position? Yeah, that's kind of a question. In a sense of improving, then the already mentioned b2, b4 is kind of a possibility. I also wanted to point out that, queen c1 is very natural from the white side. I believe that even a move like queen c8 would maybe be also natural from the black side. Simply that the queen on d7 doesn't do that much. And with queen c8, you stop any kind of ab, rook a6 possibilities just in case. And also you give the chance of later bringing the knight via d7 to b6.
Queen c8, just dropping, vacating the d6 square, and as you say, protecting the a6 square. Well, not queen c1, but a trade, opening up the a file, and now the move b4 by white. Okay, we're about to find out how much Magnus wants to play for the result of a draw. There's something to be said for rook a8, Peter, and maybe I like your move even better. I'm warming to your suggestion of queen c8, just covering the business square of a6 and maybe setting up for some kind of tactics down the d file.
Yeah, that's one of the main purpose of queen c8, and there is another aspect that whenever white finally switches ideas like e takes d5 with the idea of knight takes d5 be answered by knight e4 jumping to c5, even for this idea the move queen c8 is a great prophylactics, because knight c5 will never be a double attack on the queen and the bishop. However, Magnus just wants to prove that he has completely different ideas in mind, and he played the move d5, d4. This is something of a surprise.
Yeah, he wants to join membership in the Yasu Sarawan Chess Club. And space. One of the, I really respect these bishops on c2. Very, very, very much so. And I always really admired how they oftentimes oscillate back and forth between the b3 and c2 squares, inducing weaknesses. It's somehow in a very strange way. And the reason I like d4 so much is I want to freeze that stupid bishop on c2 and say, no, from now on, the rest of the game, your job is going to be to defend d3. You're not going to be an all-star performance anymore. So there's something about this move d4 that I like a lot. Now, having said that, queen c1 and maybe some treacherous kind of tactical trickery might occur down the c file, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, d5, d4 is a very double-edged move. On one side, if it works out nicely, then we say, wow, bravo. On the other hand, if it turns out to be that you lose the game because of this, then people will definitely say that why you had to play d5, d4. Just keep the tension, man. White anyway didn't really had any clear way to improve the position. I like your suggestion of playing queen c1 here, eyeing the h6 pawn, and also getting ready for any kind of d pawn exchange against the c pawn.
Right. And if black captures on c3, bishop takes c3, it's very easy to see how you can start to target this pawn on e5, which you've just highlighted. Kind of looks like some kind of a really weird Sicilian. If the bishop was on e2, you would say, yes, it definitely has a lot of Sicilian motifs. The bishop is on c2. Well, again, just for those of you who are joining us late, shame on you. We're having a very exciting set of games. After 3 games, Hikaru is behind by a point. To equalize the set and force a blitz tiebreak, he needs to win this game with the white pieces. Magnus makes any kind of results. We're going to have a day of reckoning tomorrow, Judgment Day, as that will be the 7th and final deciding set. Should Hikaru come back, bounce back, and win this set, he will be the winner of the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour. And Peter, we've got a board full of pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot to play for. I believe one strategical aspect is that black will never voluntarily take on c3. So
right.
A move like queen c1 will definitely be answered with the move king h7.
I agree.
And giving white the move, yeah, queen c1 on the board. I'm expecting king h7 to also appear pretty fast. But no, Magnus is taking his time. One of the things I also wanted to mention that there is a question how you recapture after c takes d4, and I believe that the answer is clearly capturing with the knight. And wow, Magnus takes d takes c3. What is this?
It's the commentator's curse, Peter. Whenever we actually believe that we're on solid ground, and you don't want to voluntarily capture on c3, just exactly then we get surprised. And by the way, knight h7, quite the surprise as well, Peter.
No, knight h7 is not a surprise. I would say that once you take d takes c3, it's clear that Magnus' intention is to go knight h7 and get a timely knight g5 in, exchange the knight from f3 for the knight on g5, and get access to the d4 square. Having said that, the big question is, do you have the time to do that?
Well, we just seen queen b2. Let's do it. Knight g5. Let's follow the footsteps of the world champion, Peter.
Yeah, because I believe that the only critical move is can you capture on e5, but I'm not sure you can. Because otherwise, if you move your knight or you exchange on g5, then I would say that black is strategically perfect, so I should take. But then you have some tactics on the h3 pawn, yeah?
Well, for one, and I think it is the h3 pawn that he wants to smack down. There is something to be said for bishop b3 and smacking on the d3 pawn, but I think h3 is the cleaner capture.
Yeah, bishop takes h3. Okay, there is also the threat of bishop takes g2 followed by queen h3 check. So white probably has to go queen f4.
Mm-hmm.
Can I go queen f4? Yes, I think I can.
And here there's some also some treacherous territory, because maybe I can knight e6. Can I play knight e6? H6 is hanging. I wanted to put my knight on d4 with the tempo. I'm sorry, I forgot about the h6 pawn. Otherwise, knight e6, knight d4 makes a kind of a nice look.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, but I mean, Magnus says, no, this is maybe too much adventure for me. Let me just stabilize with queen d6. After all, your last move had been queen c1 to b2, moving away your queen from the diagonal, and I can play knight g5 next move without any kind of complications.
Wow. Intuitively, queen b6 wasn't the first choice, because you see the move rook a6. Grandmasters just hate to allow pins and put themselves into a pin. But I guess the move rook a6 can be met by that move, Peter, the retreating move you've got on the board, bishop c8. So that dissuaded Hikaru, and Hikaru played instead knight e2.
But hang on, what is Hikaru doing? So after knight e2, knight g5, he moved away with the knight to d2. Yeah, I understand him, because knight takes g5, h5 is definitely not an option in a must-win situation.
Agreed.
Black is still in perfect control, and white has no chances of winning the game. So if he wants something out of the game, he has to try to keep as many pieces as possible. On the other hand, it's also a very risky move.
Exactly. I wanted to say exactly the same thing. It's nice when the player who needs to win is keeping all the pieces on the board and making the game, the fight, a lively one. The problem is a lot of white pieces are leaving the king side, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Magnus goes bishop c8. That's the other thing, that this knight is heading towards the e6 square. And if the knight gets to e6, then black gets perfect control of the d4 square. And one can say that this whole idea, starting with the whole operation with d5, d4, was a really great success.
Absolutely, because we've spoken about maybe the knight being a little bit not the most beautiful on the c6 square. But if black gets the opportunity to go knight e6 and knight d4, quite the contrary. The knight on c6 is a geniusly placed piece, and it's going to be an all-star in the game ahead. We've got, 9 minutes to 7 minutes, but I would say for a game that he has to draw, Magnus is feeling comfy, Peter.
Yeah, I also believe that now he feels comfortable. Okay, one question is that before black gets knight e6 in, can white consider something like a shocker, like f2, f4, trying to spice things up, thanks to the long diagonal? Okay, I believe that black should be ready for it, but definitely f4 is an interesting way to treat the position.
It's a consideration, but Korchnoi would take off his glasses, rub his eyes, kind of look at me like, yes, sir. Pawns don't move backwards. It's a consequence, Peter. Knight e6, and did the move f4 help or hurt? Yeah, and we're gonna see a trade. Bishop takes e5.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem, because you are simply controlling the d4 square too much. Now we see that this knight on c6, knight on e6 are doing perfect job, and whenever I take on e5, you still have enough pieces to control the d4, because I need to push d3, d4, otherwise my position is falling apart.
Right.
So yes, this is an answer that unfortunately you want to spice things up with f4, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then you just can't do it.
Exactly. That is definitely a boomerang situation. But now, I mean, we've explained to our audience how difficult it is for Hikaru to spice things up. The desirable breaks f4 and d4 simply are not on offer. The bishop on c2. You mentioned Vladimir Kramnik and putting the knight on c5. Peter, I'm kind of running out of suggestions, and I am feeling like I'm leaving the king. No, I can't. I can't hang the b4 pawn. I'm not liking this for Hikaru.
No, not at all. I mean, black has very easy game, and this we also see in the time management. Yeah, Hikaru was so far playing rather quickly, but the last couple of moves took time, and Magnus is ahead on the clock. It's not obvious. I mean, Magnus knows what his next move is going to be, and what white is supposed to be doing, if he can do anything at all. It's another question. It's practically not easy.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mystery for sure. Oh boy. Okay. I got to do something. H4, knight e6, knight f3, Peter?
Yeah, I get your point. That's actually probably the reason why Hikaru is also keeping his knight on d2. He doesn't want to move it anywhere, that he hopes to jump back with the knight to f3. But h4 is quite a big cost, I would say.
I agree.
Because it weakens the g4 square.
That's precisely right. The other thing that I was thinking about with h4, Peter, is that I could go h4, knight e6, h5, and make some kind of pretensions I want to win control over the f5 square. Not that I believe it's possible. Instead, we saw a semi move rook a8, Peter.
Yeah, rook a8. In general, I think it's a move that if you don't know what to do, it makes a lot of sense to play a move like rook a8. Also giving black the chance to decide what he gonna do. If he moves back with the knight to e6, then white can go knight f3. But Magnus said, no, my knight on g5 is perfectly placed. I don't want to give you any kind of knight f3 counterplay. Let me try to attack your weakness on b4. And Magnus played the move bishop g7 to f8. And Hikaru reacted with rook b1. There was nothing else to protect the pawn.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Again, I can't help but I've got this really weird feeling like a lot of white pieces are going queenside. Now, because of this exact moment, it's probably a ridiculous idea, but bishop h3, just humor me for just a moment, Peter. Bishop h3, rook d8, queen d8. So the idea behind queen d8 is I want to earn the diagonal to h4. Yes, precisely, Peter. Takes. The king has to go, and queen h4. And I'm on the doorstep of a big splat on the king side.
Well, to my eyes, it feels to me like day after day you are getting stronger and stronger, Yasser. You know? I mean,
it's because of your analysis that is inspiring me, Peter.
Well, thank you very much. But this is, I think, also a very nice illustration that you have to check out what Yasser has to say about the middle game, because all these ideas, they are fascinating me. So I believe it will fascinate everyone.
Well, again, I think it's certainly worthwhile. Sometimes it's a problem when you have a good position, you get caught down a rabbit hole because you think I'm doing really well. I put my knight on g5, and then you start thinking to yourself, how do I justify the knight being on g5? And you go, oh, I know, I can sacrifice a piece. I get 2 pawns, I get a check, I get an attack, yada, yada, yada. And then you start analyzing, and then somehow you convince yourself it doesn't work. And then you're upset that you've cost yourself 2 minutes on the clock when those 2 minutes, Peter, can be very valuable.
Yeah, that's right. But often it's also the case that the more time you spend with the variation, you feel that it might be okay. It might be the direction, but you simply cannot finally judge it. And time is ticking down, and then you say, okay, you know what? I just play the normal, natural way, and I don't go for the adventures. But yeah, as you mentioned, once you already spend a lot of time with it, it's very tricky, because if you switch and then your other idea or the other way you are treating finally the position backfires, then you will very much regret of not using that chance.
The other thing that I'm thinking that bishop h3 is definitely getting Magnus's attention is his attitude and his play throughout not just this match, but the entire tour. He has been taking the most aggressive way, and he's gambled, as we saw in the semifinals with Ding Liren. He's been willing to sacrifice his pieces, maybe under even less reasonable circumstance. And like you said, he finally settled on move B. He just played bishop d7, Peter.
Yeah, he played the move bishop d7, and Hikaru blitzed out rook a6 immediately. And now the big question is that how much time did Magnus really consider bishop takes h3, and if he was considering bishop takes h3 and then changed his mind that why should I do it? Let me just play solid and then go for bishop d7 and get hit by rook a6, which is quite an unpleasant pin along the 6th rank. But Magnus says, no, I'm not impressed. I'm simply going to eliminate this rook from the 6th with rook a8.
And by the way, there's a very nice cheap, whoa, geez, I was about to say there was a cheapo. If you take that move back for just a moment, Peter, in case of bishop c8, I was about to propose bishop e5, that's right. And in case of queen e5, rook c6, thank you very much, I won a pawn happily. But then I stopped myself because rook e5 is actually, this could be a combination that boomerangs against me, right? Because I've left the bishop on c2 hanging. And oops, that wasn't my intention when I played bishop e5.
Yeah, that would have meant welcome in the club. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I'm trying to stay out of.
You don't want to join the club, yeah, of blunderers.
My friend Rex Sinkfield, we were playing a very celebrated Ultimate Moves, and Gary Kasparov had gotten up from the board and said, "Rex, your turn to play. I present you a winning position." And Rex promoted the pawn. He pushed the pawn to the first rank, pressed the clock, removed the pawn, and put the queen on the board, and was forfeited. This is like the blunder of the century. And unfortunately, I joined the Sinkfield Club as well. I did exactly the same thing, and I lost a blitz game that way. We've seen a trade of rooks on the A file, Peter.
Yeah, we saw the trade of rooks, and Magnus just goes on with his normal reaction. I mean, just to stabilize the position. After all, white is the one who has to create something. Exactly. White has to win the game. And Hikaru goes bishop b3, showing his intentions that he wants to fight for the initiative. This bishop needed to be activated. And the pawn on d3 is not hanging because white has rook d1 using the pin and hitting the bishop on d7 at the end.
Very, very nice skewer, to be sure. It was funny, as you were pointing out rook d1, I was saying to myself, I mean, how many times have I, just missed I mean, it's an obvious move, but you just sometimes you get caught up with your own ideas. And when Magnus played the move d4, his whole purpose, to my mind, was to make sure that bishop on c2 played a silent role. The move bishop b3 with the intention of bishop d5, that indicates that Hikaru is beginning to enjoy his position once more. Peter.
Yeah, I also believe that he's getting play. The big question is how much play it is. Knight cd4. Yeah, now we are seeing the general exchanges on d4. A very typical scenario. And now the big question, how do you recapture? Because white wants to make sure to get this unbalanced pawn structure that will give him additional chances. On the other hand, black says that I'm changing all these pieces. I have the A file and you have a weakness on b4, and you might not have enough time to generate the typical counterplay against my king on the king side.
Right. Well, I cannot tolerate the knight on d4, Peter. So if I do capture it with the knight and you recapture and I go bishop to d2, how would you evaluate the position?
Well, I would evaluate that it's more or less equal, but I don't really see winning chances for white. And in this aspect, bishop takes d4, e4, f4, I was almost sure that it's going to be played. It's not the question if this is objectively best or not. Simply the situation requires this.
Right. The match situation is such that Hikaru absolutely positively has to win this game. Otherwise, it's set over. It's not match over. It's just set over. And we will be coming tomorrow for the 7th and final set. F4 with the intention of E5, shutting down the bishop on G7, going after the D4 pawn. But what is going on after Queen E's? Oh, the H4 pawn was what Magnus is after. Okay, suddenly The game has gotten ultra sharp, and Hikaru and Magnus, well, they have a lot of time, I want to say.
Yeah. Somehow this whole position got out of control. Yeah, we spoke about that. Black having the knight on c6, knight on e6 had a wonderful grip of the position, and it did feel like that. However, all this sequence that we have seen basically gave white a lot of chances as well. I mean, this powerful bishop on b3 is very, very nice. Hikaru played the move rook c1, hinting at the c7 pawn, which is not just the pawn, but it would give access to the f7 pawn.
Exactly.
Black has very nice play, of course, from on the other hand, that he has the two bishops, rook d8 played. By the way, c7 pawn is not hanging because of queen e1 check. So something like rook c7 would be a big blunder because of queen e1 check.
An immediate perpetual for Black, which is all he needs to do to win the set.
Yeah, and now Hikaru played the move queen c3 stabilizing, basically looking at the e1, but somehow all his pieces are a little bit strange.
True. I desperately wanted to get in the move g6, g5 for Magnus to liberate the bishop.
Something, sorry, Yasser,
Yes.
to interrupt, but something like queen g3, is that a move?
That's an awesome looking move. I love that move. Queen takes.
Okay, maybe you have
c7.
queen takes c7. You have to, but queen c7 is very, very crazy. And Magnus played the move queen g3.
That looks incredibly powerful because you're hitting this gorgeous and very important pawn f4, but you're also threatening the queen e3 check, picking up the knight. And by the way, if the knight moves, the pawn on d3 is hanging. My first instinct is white's position is crumbling, Peter.
Yeah, I have the same feeling. That's why I also interrupted you. Sorry for that, but
Not at all. No. This was a good interruption.
it simply felt like, yeah, this queen g3, because if this works, then it might be game over, in fact.
Right.
The only question I had, that what happens after queen takes c7? It
Right.
feels like it should lose, but I have my threats with queen takes f7.
Okay, give me the piece. Queen e3 check, and queen takes d4.
I have to go to h1. Yeah, queen takes d4. I take on f7. You go, and then I enter with rook c7.
Exactly. Now, oops, I have to, rook d7 unfortunately allows queen g8 mate. Oh boy. So if I have to block with the bishop, I have a feeling I'm just somehow I'm going to get away with a perpetual check somehow, Peter. I mean, you're going to win back the piece, but I'm going to go queen f2 and get a perpetual check.
Yeah, but that's not your main intention after queen g3, I believe. And Magnus, after queen takes c7, played the calm little move rook d7, like, guys, calm down. I know that it's exciting. Yes. I know that it's exciting, but I'm in the driver's seat and I have things under control.
And that move perfectly exemplifies that in fact is the case. With the pawn on f7, very nicely defended, with f4 hanging, with the knight on d4 basically being lost. Okay, it's game over.
Exactly.
Peter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, rook a1, it was a desperate try to get somehow rook a8 in. But yeah, and already Magnus has won the game. Hikaru resigned because his complete position falls apart.
Wow. Impressive game impressive set by Magnus, Tanya. Just what he had to do. The world champion does it time after time. He comes back when he needs a win.
Absolutely, yes. This is the third time that the world champion has leveled the match score in the finals. And not just that, I think today it was incredibly challenging for him, not just over the board, but it was clear to all of us watching the broadcast just how much agony he was with his back injury. I'm hoping that he would join us shortly. Of course, we're gonna have to make it really, really quick because it's clear that he's going through a really, really bad situation with the back pain. But yes, a big, big comeback, and that means Judgment Day is postponed to tomorrow.
Wonderful. I am very, very pleased because they have thrilled us throughout, Tanya, and an extra game. Sign me up.
And a big win today. I mean, look at that margin by 3-1. I think this has been the most convincing day for Magnus, not just score-wise, but never really getting in any trouble in any of the games in today's set, Yas.
Absolutely, really controlled play, wouldn't you
and
say?
Yes, we do have the world champion joining us. So let's just Magnus, can you hear us? Congratulations, Magnus.
Jag ska bara skriva till dem att...
Yeah, we can hear you now. Magnus, can you hear us? All right, we're gonna try and fix that. I'm not sure because we can hear Magnus, but I think there is some issue on his end. But yes.
There we go.
Yes, that means that we are going to be having a day 7 tomorrow, which that's it. I mean, it's a best of 7. It all comes down. This has been the long haul in the finals. I'm still. I'm gonna check if he can hear us. Magnus, are you here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Magnus, it was very clear that today was a very tough day, not just on the board, but you were also going through a lot with your back injury. What happened? Are you feeling better?
No, so what happened is I was generally feeling great today, and then like half an hour before the game, I was just going for a quick swim in the opening. In the ocean. I started running, and something just happened. So, but there's a little less pain now than there was before. So,
I'm sure that winning the set helps with the pain a bit. Magnus, we're not going to keep you for very long because, of course, tomorrow is a big day. Just quickly, briefly, you could give us your impressions about how the set went today.
Yeah, I think in the first game, in general, it was okay. I will just mention one moment, which is when he played Queen B6 on, I would say, about move 30. Yeah, move 31. So he started shaking his head after he made this move. And I guess I fell for the oldest trick in the book, right? Because when he started shaking his head, I just assumed he missed Rook D1 and it's game over. But of course, after Rook D6, I have to start all over. But yeah, it turned out fine, so I won't complain.
All right, and of course, Knight G7 was a very strong blow. Did you see it instantly when he played A6?
Yeah, A6 was very provocative, of course. But obviously one of the ideas of bringing the Rook to C5 is to take on D7, and if I don't take, then my preceding play makes little to no sense.
All right, and Magnus, big day tomorrow. Just your thoughts on the final day of this final?
It's obviously gonna be tough. I feel like every day has been difficult so far, and I don't expect this to be any different.
We wish you a very speedy recovery with the back injury, and congratulations on today's win. And we look forward to tomorrow. Just quickly, Peter, yes, anything from Magnus?
Well, first of all, Magnus, a very big congratulations. I thought you played outstanding chess today.
Thank you.
And as far as your back is concerned, I strongly recommend find a masseuse, get a good back rub, and I'm going to turn it over to Peter.
Yeah, congratulations, Magnus. Yeah, it was a fantastic day. Very nice games, total control. Yeah, there was this scary moment on game 2, but knowing your situation, I don't want to ask you any question. Just hope that you will recover quickly, and yeah, looking forward to this 7th set tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, Magnus, take care. And with that, the world champion levels the score, and we get another action-filled final day tomorrow. The score is 3-3. I think, yes, Peter, when this final began with these two extremely strong players, undoubtedly we knew that it was going to be an epic fight. But the way I think few of us could have predicted just the way the final's gone.
No question about it, Tanya. This has actually been a ridiculous final. If you got a Hollywood scriptwriter and said, okay, sit down and tell us what would keep the fans on the edge of their seat, they would come up with this precise script, and the producer would say, can't use it. It's ridiculous. It's not happening. This has been unimaginable. And for Magnus, time after time, each time he's been behind in the match, somehow he digs down deep and he returns the set. And Tanya, this has been an amazing match to call. It's fantastic. It's epic. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. And Peter, what about your thoughts on how today went?
Yeah, well, I have the same impression as Yasser that, okay, it's a fantastic match. And right from the beginning, of course, probably nobody could have expected that it's going to be so close and so tough. But when Hikaru started with winning the very first set and we saw him playing more and more confident, somehow it was looming in the air that there might be some surprise. And to be honest, I'm not surprised at all that we are going to see this game 7, because this match really deserves set 7. And I think all the world is waiting for this day tomorrow to come.
Tomorrow indeed is Judgment Day. A lot of our audience watching us on YouTube and Twitch, big shout out to all of you for being a part of this show and engaging with us on Twitter as well. You've been comparing Magnus's performance today to Michael Jordan's performance in the 1997 finals against the match against Utah Jazz, and it was the flu game, the famous flu game. And I think where literally Michael Jordan willed himself to perform for his team just exceptionally unwell. And I think one of the legendary moments, the things that makes legends, is that when the going gets tough, you know what it is, the rest of it, the tough gets going. And that's exactly what Magnus Carlsen did today. Hats off to the world champion for literally willing himself into leveling today's set and fixing up for the final day of the tour final. It's not been easy for Magnus Carlsen this entire finals. Kudos to Hikaru Nakamura for just the epic fight and the battle that it's been. He's taken lead thrice in the entire match. He's been the one who Magnus has been playing catch up to. And finally, it all comes down to a big, big day tomorrow. Let's quickly take a look at what was going on Twitter. We had, let me see if I can get that up. We had Silicon writing in, I wish Leko comes out of retirement and plays the next World Blitz Championship like how Kramnik did the last year. Leko's tactical knowledge now is no lesser than the current top players. Felt that while he was commentating on the second game. I have felt that throughout the event. Peter, it's yes, Peter, both of you really. I mean, the insights that you've given us, how you've called on the action. I think all of us want to see you back on the board. Peter, any chance of that happening?
Well, thank you very much. It's been, of course, a thrilling Magnus tour, and it gave me so much pleasure. I also had the chance of playing in the Legends tournament, and to be honest, I felt like it was very, very nice, because the feeling that I can still compete against the very best players, this motivates me and gives me a lot of strength. On the other hand, I very much want to see Yasser in the US Championship, because I feel like Yasser is in top shape, And I mean, I was already hardly able to control him in the last couple of days. So Yasser, just get a wild card. I want to see you there and beat everyone.
Well, I can tell you, I think it's a young ladies' game. I think it's a young man's game. And I'm happy to make room for what I see as some phenomenal junior talents. I mean, Tanya, the kids from India you should scare the bejesus out of anybody. The kids from America are phenomenal. I think that the future of chess is assured by the generations of talents that we're seeing today, and I'm happy to give the stage to them. I think we're going to see, wonderful things in the years ahead. Maybe, just saying, a seniors championship. I like the legends of chess type of thing, but no, I mean, I see the competition and how tough it is. No way, not getting me back there. I'll stay out of the arena.
Yes, as long as we've got you commentating and calling on the action, I think we'll take that. That we'll take whatever we can get. But it's been such an honor to be a part of this entire tour and to be able to hear the two legends, Yasser Saravan and Peter Lecco, commentate. So absolutely. And then we also had I'm sorry, I'm definitely going to get this name wrong, but Meltier writing in, Magnus Carlsen leading against Hikaru besides having a lot of back pain while losing 3 sets in normal condition. Crazy games, crazy blunders. So far, Hikaru seriously challenged him the past couple of days. I think you're spot on with the challenge, and I think tomorrow is going to be absolutely major for both these players. So much at stake. $160,000 for the winner. There's the runner-up goes up with $80,000, but it's not just that. This final has been such a process, such a journey for these two players that and they're so close to it. I mean, Hikaru is definitely on his A game. It just completely informed, finding absolutely incredible resources on the board, playing world-class chess at par with the world champion. Magnus Carlsen, for the first time in the entire tour, is not really being able to do much on the board. Today, he had a good day. He had a good day at office. He was able to bounce back, and absolutely, it was incredible to watch him on camera. I mean, this is what champions are made of. I think it was while during the broadcast, we were seeing just how much in pain and agony and anguish he was, but just incredible. And hats off to the world champion for being such a legend, continuing playing as well at just non-stop play. And I know that for a fact that not once did he propose to stop for a couple of minutes or to get a little bit of rest, as Yas, you were pointing out. It's not there in the regulations, and it was not asked by the world champion. It was just amazing to see, and this is exactly what champions are made of. Hikaru Nakamura is also what champions are made of, so we're going to have 2 champions tomorrow fighting it out for big bucks, and whoever wins truly deserves it. It's just hard to pick a winner. And with that, we are going to call it a wrap. But of course, a big reminder to all of you that the chess must go on, because it's just a game that all of us have fallen in love with. And that's big thanks to this entire tour for that, for getting us addicted to this sport, and for all the joy that it's given us during a very difficult and a challenging time. You can contribute and make sure that events like these continue by considering going premium and supporting everything that Chess24 does. There's a 30% off, and also that would ensure that we keep bringing you all this insane action at this time as well as in the future. There's also been some big news about the first big over-the-board tournament being announced by Norway Chess. And I am super excited to hear that. The lineup is insane. We're going to be talking more about that tomorrow, but lots to look forward to. Chess24 is coming up with some amazing innovative events as well. Keep your eyes out on that. There is a big 30% off right now, which I know expires once the tour finishes, so consider doing that. And of course, to prepare for all the chess action that you are going to be a part of, definitely check out all the great video courses available online on chessable.com. There are some great deals on that. We've got the openings covered, we've got the middle game covered, we've got end games covered, to make sure that you're up to the task of playing some good chess. yourself. It's good night from all of us. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.
No, but nobody likes the French. I also didn't like the French, but the course makes it great because like it's a opening, but I've done so much work to make it actually kind of first of all correct, to like basically correct. Also like fun. I mean, I basically recreate, like I take this crappy French and make something great out of it.